Chapter 1620. Who is it? Death was in a trance when she heard the words, and immediately explained. Although there is a gap between that guy and the person I like, he is also the closest. Who on earth is so powerful? The young emperor was also interested. The person who could make Death favor, the whole world's population would be curious about him. I have said it before. Death said meaningfully. That guy is very strong, and he is not from the imperial capital like me. He has a big goal and is ambitious at the same time. Although he is not suitable in some other aspects, it doesn't matter. It is God's blessing that I can find that guy. Death saw through it quite clearly. There was no perfect human being in this world, and everything could not be changed according to one's own logical thinking. You said it? Minister Ornit was also surprised when he heard this. After recalling what Death said, he said loudly, "Is it that dustless? That guy is a member of the night raid." The young emperor frowned. However, Death did not pay attention to him. Her eyes just looked at the big guy next to him. Minister Ornit was the emperor's father. He was more like a father than a father. Yes, it is him. Death nodded and immediately said without concealing. However, I just intend to raise that guy as a pet. Dustless left a deep impression on me. It is difficult to forget him. That guy humiliated me again and again. I must catch him back and feed him. Since she was young, Death had always put a collar on others. Only last time was an exception. Not to mention that she suffered a loss in the hands of Dustless. She was also put on a collar by him. It was unbearable. Death was always thinking about revenge against Dustless. I see. Minister Ornit was surprised after hearing it, and he was too lazy to continue talking nonsense with Death. Once this woman decided on something, no one could pull her back. Then congratulations to the general for your success. Minister Ornit knew that his denial could not change the will of Death. In this case, it was better to sell a favor to Death, so that the alliance between them could be more consolidated. Then we must capture that guy. The young emperor also agreed. Since the honorable father had spoken, as a good son, he naturally had to agree to it as well. Although the two of them were not related by blood, there was no doubt that Osnit's relationship with the emperor was even stronger than that of a father. The emperor would agree to all of Osnit's conditions. In another direction, Pucci. In the pitch-black room, a large amount of blood suddenly appeared in the air and covered the floor. Looking around, the entire room was filled with corpses. They had all been killed in an extremely cruel manner. They had all been cut in half at the waist. TSK, this weapon is really scary. Dustless quietly looked at the scissors in Hill's hand, and couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. No matter who it was, if they were hit by this thing, they could end up being cut in half. This group of people had all died in such a miserable way. Retreat, mine and Hill. Glancing at the pink-haired girl, Dustless took the lead to leave the smoky room. Corpses had been piled up everywhere, and they were all killed mercilessly by Dustless and others. This guy dares to order us to. This newcomer is too arrogant. He has no rules at all. Facing us two veterans, he should try to please us. Mine hummed and said, deliberately raising her voice to let Dustless hear. Dustless walked away. Even if he heard it, he turned a deaf ear to Mine's complaints. After joining the night raid for so many days, he had heard her complaints and had become immune. Is that so? Hill's naturally dull little face showed a meaningful smile. Then you didn't refuse his order. Hill, you figure out your position for me. The two of us are good teammates in the same trench. Mine blushed after being stunned for a moment. Unconsciously, her teammates were all turned against her. Whiz whiz whiz. Just at this time, Dustless suddenly stopped and looked at the forest on the left side with a cold face. There was a cold gaze looking at them. Is there an enemy? Hill and Mine made a fighting posture. They looked in the direction of Dustless, and a girl in the Special Zone's guard uniform came into view. It's really her. Seeing this person appear, Dustless was not surprised. What should come will come. In the original work, Hill was killed by this guy ruthlessly. I spend a lot of time waiting every day, and finally you are here. Night raid. After the voice fell, the good-looking girl immediately turned into an evil spirit. Her distorted face was full of horror and killing intent. A surging chill rushed to Dustless and others. This person was a member of the Special Zones Guard, Seleucidates. You are a group of evil people. You must be punished with justice. Seleucidates came out of the dark woods with a white puppy. Dustless knew that it was the Taigu of Seleucidates, the demon beast transformed into 100-armed giant, the dog that had been called Xiaoka. It looked harmless on the surface, but it was actually a very ferocious existence. Is this woman's head broken? The situation is not clear. The current situation is 3v1. She has no chance to win. Chapter 16:21. Is there something wrong with this woman's head? She hasn't figured out the situation. The current situation is 3v1. She has no chance to win. Mine sneered coldly. This stupid woman didn't even seem to figure out the basic situation. The people who were at an absolute disadvantage were not her and Hill, but Seleucidates. Hee. Seleucidates heard the words and slightly raised his mouth, revealing a ferocious arc. There is no weakness or advantage in punishing evil. I just need to annihilate all of you. Seleucidates' mouth opened. A dark muzzle was exposed, and a dazzling bullet was shot from the front. Bang bang bang. Several shots were shot in succession. The dense fire was shot to Dustless and other two people. Phew phew phew. Hill and Mine, who realized the danger, retreated, and only Dustless was like a stone, standing still as if it had nothing to do with him. He go to hell. Seleucidates felt pity. Although he was a little disappointed that two people ran away, it was not bad to kill one of the members of the night raid. Bang bang bang. Dustless's body was penetrated by the bullets. There were more than a dozen holes. His heart was destroyed. He would definitely die. Idiot, why don't you dodge? Mine saw the wounds on Dustless's body. Her tone suddenly increased several times, and the taigu in her hand shone with a huge dazzling light of destruction. Boom boom boom. A ray of destructive light shot out. It was several times stronger than usual. Dustless's death was a big blow to Mine. After all, Dustless had saved her. Phew phew phew. The thick light came to him. Seleucidates was shocked. He quickly said to his taigu, "Little could block it for me." Ow 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 ow. A strange sound came out from the mouth of this strange creature. Then his body became countless times bigger, revealing his horrible and gloomy appearance. He blocked in front of Seleucidates like a meat shield. Boom boom boom. However, Mine, who was angry, was also much more powerful. She instantly destroyed this biotype taigu. Poochie. There was a huge hole in Coco's abdomen. Even her organs had been completely crushed. The hole was large enough for a person to walk through. Little Ko. You bastard, how dare you? Seleucidates' face was distorted even more. The black hole in her mouth was exposed again, and she unceremoniously shot a bullet at Mine. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The dense firepower net of bullets came head-on, and there was no way to escape. Mine was going to be shot into a sieve. Damn it. Mine scolded secretly. She was sweating. She couldn't escape from both sides. There was no shelter around her. She was about to be shot. Am I going to die? Mine's face was full of unwillingness. She was not afraid of death, but if she could, Mine hoped to drag Seleucidates to be buried with her. After all, Dustless had helped her and saved her life. If she couldn't help him take revenge, she would have no face to meet Dustless in the underworld. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this time, a black shadow stood in front of Mine without hesitation, protecting her like a shield. Gil. Staring at the purple girl in front of her, Mine was very moved. Clang 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 clang. Gil held the scissor-shaped taigu and blocked it in front of her. All the bullets fell on the taigu. Because Gil's taigu was extremely hard, it could be used as a shield. Damn it. Seleucidates saw the situation and scolded. Looking at the two people who were close, she felt extremely unlucky. After all, she almost killed Mine. At the same time, she hated Gil. Since you like to meddle in other people's business, go to hell. Seleucidates screamed with a distorted face. She opened her mouth and shot countless bullets at the same time. Bang bang bang. The result was the same as before. The bullet attack was blocked. Your good luck seems to be used up. I am going to avenge that guy now. Mine stepped forward. The muzzle of the Taigu pumpkin had been aimed at Selu Ubiquitas. Haha. When Selu Ubiquitas saw this, he revealed a devilish smile and said coldly, "Before that, please take a look behind the two of you." Gil and mine were both stunned. They turned their heads at the same time. A black shadow was staring at them with murderous intent. Ow ow ow. Selu Ubiquitas' Taigu roared like a beast. Its body became dozens of times bigger. Then his strong and powerful big hand caught mine and Gil instantly. Damn it. All this happened so suddenly that Gil and mine were still in a daze. When they turned around, Taigu, who had become bigger, had already caught the two. Ah! I finally succeeded. Justice triumphed over evil. The unscrupulous laughter lingered in the black night sky, and did not disappear for a long time. Selu Ubiquitas' cheeks raised a smile of victory. It was a great victory to kill 3 members of the night raid. Master, I finally avenged you. I successfully killed 3 members of the night raid. Damn it, Selu Ubiquitas is so despicable and insidious. He deliberately let the biotype Taigu pretend to be dead. In fact, he was looking for opportunities to attack us. Damn it, we were fooled. Mine struggled hard, but found that it did not work at all. The strength of the Taigu was too strong. Gil could not escape, let alone mine who was weaker. The two looked pale for a while. Taigu, crush these 2 evil criminals for me. Chapter 1622. Ah! The biotype Taigu increased its strength. Mine and Gil immediately screamed in pain. The two were sweating, and the pain made their faces as pale as paper. Crush them to avenge the master. Selu Ubiquitas, whose cheeks were distorted, roared like a crazy ghost. A few days ago, the night attack assassinated her master, Captain Oka of the Special Zones Police Force. Therefore, Selu Ubiquitas hated the night attack. She could not wait to drink their blood and swallow their bones. She came out every night, and today she finally encountered the night attack. Oh. The biotype Taiga nodded slightly after receiving the order. Then it was angry and increased the power output. When it was about to completely crush the 2 women, a sharp light broke the situation. Poochie. The light penetrated the arms of the biotype Taigu. 2 crisp sounds were heard in succession. Coco's arms fell. Gil and mine were able to escape from the cage, and they were relaxed. Who dares to stop the justice from defeating the evil? Unforgivable. When he saw this, Selu Ubiquitas flew into a rage, and his sharp tone became several times louder. He was like a malicious spirit that had come to claim his life, and his scarlet eye sockets were filled with a bloody glow. The veins of blood that were like spiderwebs spread throughout his entire eye sockets, and his entire body was filled with a raging and ominous aura. Everyone's gaze swept over. Under the night sky, that faintly discernible thin figure was exceptionally conspicuous. You are dustless. Mine and Gil were even more anxious. They were grateful to the savior, but when they saw the lazy face, the 2 women were stunned. Don't show such an unexpected expression. This is the imperial capital, and we are attacking at night. The people who can save you are naturally our own people. Will those Empire soldiers be kind enough to save you too? Dustless asked calmly as if nothing happened, and at the same time he glanced at the bloody biotype Taiga Coco and whispered, "It is just a tool, but it can also regenerate quickly, and even pretend to be dead. It is very capable, and it is so humane." On the surface, Dustless was praising, but in fact his tone was as cold as frost, and he flicked a light from his finger, and it went straight to the biotype Taigu. Laser! A dazzling light shot out and flew to Coco's head. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the night sky shone brightly. Following that, a bright flame soared into the sky. Coco's head was instantly destroyed, charred by the scorching wave of fire. You bastard! Selu Ubiquitas' eyes were about to burst. Originally, he hated Dustless to the bone. According to the news from his death, he was the culprit who killed Oka. Now he also crushed her Taigu. The anger in her heart had already reached an intolerable level. This guy has already been twisted. There's no saving him. Dustless's face was as cold as ice as his fingertips glowed with a high-density light. His finger was aimed at the head of Selu Ubiquitas. Although this guy looked pretty good, it did not mean that Dustless would be compassionate. Dustless was not a man who could not move when he saw a beauty. It was even more impossible for him to be merciful to Selyu Ubiquitas. This kind of person was brainwashed, and her mind was poisoned. Only by sending her to heaven could she be saved. Go to hell, remember. The person who killed you is called Dustless. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After the voice fell, Dustless flicked a dazzling light from his finger. I won't be killed so easily, and even if I die, I will drag you, this group of evil criminals, to be buried with me. You evil people all deserve to die. Selyu Ubiquitas roared like a madman. He hated Dustless and the others to the core. His resentment had reached an unbelievable level. He couldn't wait to drag Dustless and the others down to hell. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the face of the light, Selyu Ubiquita's reaction was very agile. She actually came over miraculously and opened her mouth to shoot a lot of bullets. Bang bang bang. Dustless's body was penetrated again, but nothing happened. The damaged wound was quickly repaired by the ability of the glinting fruit. Damn it. Why does justice lose to this evil person? Clenching her fists, Selyu Ubiquitas was unwilling to give up. Why? This kind of shallow reason seems to be very simple. Slowly walking towards Selyu Ubiquitas, looking down at the frustrated girl, Dustless said coldly, because your justice is not as strong as my strength. The so-called justice is determined by the winner, so I am the winner, I am the justice. Instead, you are an evil person. Then I will destroy you with brute force. I don't care so much, Xiaoka, use that trick. Selyu Ubiquitas glanced at the biotype Taigu Xiaoka with madness in his eyes. His words were determined to destroy everything. Oh, you still have tricks? Faint ripples appeared in the calm eyes. Dustless whispered, such a positive tone, you seem to have the despair of death, which slightly makes me look at you differently. Ao. After receiving Celia's order, the biotype Taigu Xiaoka immediately took the lead. Then he seemed to have taken hormones. His body expanded several times in an instant, and his white body also changed greatly. Instead, it was replaced by blood-black hair, and the eyeballs that were as big as copper were also full of rage. Xiaoka's strength will increase after using fury. This time you. Selyu regained her confidence and said proudly to Dustless, but she did not know that this guy had disappeared. You are just SOSO. The next moment, when Dustless appeared again, his feet stepped on Xiaoka's head. Chapter 16:23. What a fast speed. Gil and Mine looked at each other. Their expressions were a little numb. It was not that they had never seen the market, but Dustless was too fast, and he disappeared in a flash. When he appeared again, he had already appeared on the head of the biological dog-type Taigu. Dustless, this guy. I thought he was dead just now, and I was sad for him once. Now it seems that he is still alive. I really don't deserve it. Mine squeezed out the crystal water stains from the corner of her eyes, and she was about to cry. Although she was dissatisfied with Dustless on the mouth, her expression was smiling. Obviously she did not mean what she said. Xiaoka, crush him for me. Being provoked by an evil person again and again, Seleucid Ubiquitas, who could not bear it, had a face as black as coal, and he could not help but completely explode. Ao. The violent dog-type Taigu Xiaoka roared, looking up at Dustless on the head, and grabbed him with his big hand. Poochie. The dog-type Taigu Xiaoka once again grabbed the body of Dustless, but before he had time to be happy, he suddenly found that the texture he caught was not right. It was good that he caught Dustless, but it was no different from catching the air. His body was very ethereal, and there was no substance. Buzz buzz buzz. A large number of dense flashes were condensed at the foot again. Dustless glanced at the dog-type Taigu Xiaoka coldly, and then the small foot that was raised high did not hesitate to fall. Speed is power. Have you been kicked by the speed of light? Speed of light kick. The shining big foot that was like a layer of gold fell on the head of the dog-type Taigu Xiaoka mercilessly. His head suddenly sunk. Kakaka. Especially the most terrible place of the eyes. It left a burning footprint directly. Boom boom boom. The dog-type creature Taigu Xiaoka was kicked away by Dustless for dozens of meters away in a moment. The body smashed several big trees in succession. Even the ground was pulled out of a long ditch. Every part of his body was badly mutilated. Ao. Although he was out of breath, the dog-type Taigu Xiaoka still stood up tenaciously. The bloody eyes like a meatball stared at Silver without slowing down. It's useless. Seeing that Coco was still standing up, Selu Ubiquitas heaved a sigh of relief. The power of that kick just now was really shocking. She even suspected that it could destroy a mountain with one kick. The biological Taigu can be restored by any attack. After being trampled on a few times, Sailor Ubiquita's arrogance and confidence returned to normal. TSK. You can recover from any attack? I advise you to speak less of such arrogant and ignorant words in the future. It will only make you seem more ignorant. Dustless retorted with a sneer. What do you mean? Selu Ubiquitas was stunned. She stared at Dustless unhappily. She understood that there was a hidden meaning in his words. To put it simply, this dog-shaped Taigu is still alive. It is completely my kindness. After all, I am also a sensitive person. You have a deep relationship with this dog. It would be too heartless to kill it instantly. You can't talk about the old days. I am not the kind of heartless man. Dustless continued to explain casually. That's why I let the two of you fight for a while longer and communicate with each other before you die. You should thank me for being merciful. Dustless said frankly, not caring about the bulging blue veins on Cyril Ubiquitas's forehead. Poochie. Gil and mine couldn't help but spurt out their saliva. They stared at Dustless gloomily. This guy was too annoying. The meaning of these words was that if you could still breathe, you should thank me for not killing you. Little dog, tear him up for me. Selu Ubiquitas ordered with a green face. If she listened to Dustless's nonsense, she would be annoyed to death. Ow. The dog-shaped Taigu that was accused shook all over. It was like a whistling hurricane. Its speed was so fast that it was difficult to catch it with human eyes. It's so fast. Mine and Gil whispered in shock. Such a huge body. It moved so fast that they could not see it at all. This was also the fundamental reason why they were caught just now. It's so slow. This fleeting speed fell into the eyes of Dustless, but it was as slow as a turtle crawling. There was no highlight. Phew. Suddenly there was a fierce hurricane behind him. Dustless did not even turn his head. He did not need to look to know that it was the dog-shaped Taigu. Its movement was too big, it was difficult to not find it. To assassinate a person, first of all, it must be done quietly. Like this, the evil spirit was all over the sky. The movement was too fierce, it could easily locate the position of the enemy. Shinra Tensei. His closed eyes abruptly opened, and an incomparably violent repulsive force erupted out. Kakaka. Because it was too close to Dustless, the dog-shaped Taigu was also affected, but its body was not bounced off, but it was directly crushed by the violent repulsion. One of the glass-like spheres was also crushed. Isn't this a thorough death? The core is also destroyed. The dog will definitely die. Taking a glance at Cyril Ubiquitas, Dustless asked indifferently, You should also sleep forever. Selu Ubiquitas's heart was completely distorted. Her whole body was transformed into a weapon. It was impossible to tame her. In this case, he could only destroy her ruthlessly. Tsukuyami. Dustless glanced at Selu Ubiquitas gently. The majestic spiritual power invaded her mind. He did not torture her. He just destroyed her nervous system and annihilated it instantly. Selu Ubiquitas's eyes were empty, and she immediately looked at the deep void with infatuation. Then she left the world unwillingly with relief. Chapter 1624. Is that Taiga dog finished? What a pity. Mine and Gil sighed. In addition to the necessary task of assassination, the night raid also had the secondary job of collecting Taigu. The Taigu that killed Zank a while ago was sent to the headquarters of the Revolutionary Army. The Taigu of Selu Ubiquitas did not even leave the body, and there was only a large pool of blood on the ground. It's good that you are fine. Hill revealed a naturally silly smile. His gaze when looking at Dustless had an additional hint of strangeness. The targets that should be eliminated have been eliminated, let's retreat. Stretching out, Dustless yawned and took the lead to disappear into the darkness. You don't have the demeanor of a peerless master at all. Mine shook her head and immediately glanced at Hill. She just caught the obscure expression. Although she didn't know what it meant, mine didn't know why she felt uncomfortable in her heart. At the moment, in the palace in another place. 3 beasts, I have a new task for you. On the ground covered with green grass, Death stared at the 3 people who were half kneeling in front of her and explained, recently, many people are rebelling against the minister. You go to pretend to be the night raid and kill all the civil officials who talk nonsense. Understood, Lady Death. The 3 people all answered respectfully. Well, you can go back. Death waved her white and tender arms and turned her head with a little tiredness. Recently, she had been crazily training herself, and the time to sleep could be counted with fingers. That. Lady Death. At this time Leva, one of the 3 beasts, suddenly said, Lady Death, are you going to deal with Dustless? We can finally get rid of the shame. Not only Leva was very excited, but the rest of Nu and Didos were also very excited. After all, Dustless had seriously destroyed their physical and mental health, and they had not recovered until now. Very good, I can feel your high will. Death smiled and nodded, and immediately her eyes dimmed. However, let's forget about Dustless for the time being. If we go to trouble him, the people who will be killed should be us. Death remembered the battle with Dustless and whispered, but it is also because of that guy, my strength has improved a lot now, and the old stubborn guy also promised to deal with him with me. Old stubborn guy? Leva and the other 2 were all stunned. Soon after, they said in surprise in unison. Could it be the other strongest general of the empire? General Bude? If he is willing to join forces with Death, it will be easy to take down Dustless. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. Those people in the imperial capital have been very busy recently. At the base of the night raid, the boss Najenda carefully read the information sent. Frowning deeply, her expression was very cautious and serious, and even clearly worried. As for the other members of the night raid, they were eating breakfast. Does Death want to force us to come out and kill us all? After a while, Boss Najenda put out the cigarette in her hand, showing a headache. Recently, many civil officials of the empire have been killed. When they left the night raid leaflets and wanted to pour dirty water on us. Dustless recalled the incident while eating breakfast, and at the same time he did not forget to give a thumbs up to Scarlet Eye. This guy was really good at cooking meat. It must be Death's doing. She wants to force us out and kill us in one fell swoop. Leonai nodded in agreement while wolfing down the food. But, Dustless stared at Tatsumi and Bulet, who were still training outside the window, with a meaningful smile at the corner of his mouth, and a raging light flashed in the depths of his eyes. I can take this opportunity to kill Bulet, so that this guy won't meddle in other people's business and hinder me every time. When he planned to kill Tatsumi a few times, Bulet, who was in the way, often came out to mess things up. He could use Death's hands to kill this stinky bug. We should stop Death immediately during the night raid. Otherwise, more and more civil officials will be killed by her. Those civil officials with conscience are the elites of the country in the future. They must not be lost. Dustless suddenly stood up and said loudly in an impassioned tone. However, when Dustless's words fell, the scene was silent, and they all looked at him. Dustless, are you sick? Scarlet Eye couldn't help but say anxiously. If you are sick, you should give up this mission. Everyone will give you more rewards. You usually don't care about those civil officials. Why are you so concerned about this incident? You must be sick. Blinking her eyes, Scarlet Eye stared at Dustless with concern. At the same time, she put her forehead on Dustless's forehead. After feeling that his body temperature was normal, she strangely said to herself, "It seems that you don't have a fever." Ahem. It's my responsibility to protect those civil officials. Dustless patted his chest awkwardly. Scarlet Eye probably thought that his brain was damaged. Dustless usually avoided when he heard about protecting those civil officials. He often pretended to be sick or refused for various reasons. This time he took the initiative to attack, which really made the people of the night raid feel puzzled. I can't say that I intend to use this opportunity to kill Bulet. Dustless was secretly depressed by the strange eyes of the crowd. He simply chose to learn from Leonette and eat, ignoring the strange eyes of others. Chapter 1625. For the strange eyes of several people, Dustless simply ignored them, and then began to plan how to kill Tatsumi and Bullet. These two bugs were wandering around all day, which was really disgusting. Don't talk about those boring trifles, there is a big event that needs to be dealt with now. Although the boss agenda was also quite strange, she did not ask much. Although everyone was a killer and had to obey her orders on the surface, everyone had their own privacy, and there was no need to delve into it. According to the latest intelligence, Death must have a new plan to attack us at night. Negenda sighed gloomily, knowing that this was Death's conspiracy, but she still got involved. This feeling was particularly uncomfortable. Recently, there is a cruise ship with civil servants, which is also the target of Death. There are many civil servants with conscience on the cruise ship, and there are also enemies of Minister Ernest. It is estimated that Death will not let go of the target easily, so this mission let me, Tatsumi, and Bullet carry it out together. Before the boss Negenda finished speaking, Dustless directly interrupted her speech. 3 people. Negenda frowned slightly with a little hesitation, and finally decided. Death is aggressive, and she will not stop until she achieves her goal. Maybe she will send a lot of masters to sneak in. You 3 are too few, so this mission will be completed by Tatsumi and Bullet, Dustless and Akame. Why does Akame participate in this kind of thing every time? Dustless was secretly depressed. According to the nature of Akame, would she let him kill Bullet? The answer was definitely impossible. Although he had a good relationship with Akame, Akame valued the so-called companions very much, and would never allow Dustless to kill the so-called companions. Let's wait and see. Looking up, he stared at Bullet and Tatsumi, who were sweating outside the window. He saw that the two were talking and laughing happily. And the most ridiculous thing was that Bullet showed his love to Tatsumi from time to time. Dustless felt goosebumps all over his body. Originally, this matter has nothing to do with you, but you have to participate in it. You can't blame me for being ruthless, Bulla. Dustless muttered in his heart. He was only targeting Tatsumi, but Bulla and Tatsumi had a good relationship and often hindered Dustless, so he could only kill this eyesore. By the way, when you sneak onto the cruise ship, make sure to dress up a little. The boss Negenda reminded, whether it was Dustless, Akame, Tatsumi or Bullet. The 4 of them were wanted by the whole city. Dressing up could save unnecessary trouble. On the sparkling surface of the sea, a huge cruise ship was slowly moving forward. Celebrities from all over the world were gathered on the ship. At first glance, there were prominent figures everywhere. This is the first time I've dressed up like this. On the cruise ship where people from all over the world gathered, Dustless and Akame stood together. The 2 of them were dressed very differently from before. They wore matching couple outfits. Wu Chen was wearing a black tuxedo. His slightly messy long hair was specially cut short this time. His deep eyes were as dazzling as the bright moon. They were embedded in his eye sockets and shone brightly. Dustless also respected Negenda's script and tried his best to act as Akame's husband. He had an elegant smile on his face. When he met people who passed by him, he would show a charming smile. Ridiculous. Why can Dustless and Akame pretend to be husband and wife and sneak onto the ship, but I have to be responsible for doing odd jobs? Damn, it's really a bad year. Tatsumi, who was wiping the table in the distance, was like a jealous jar that had been knocked over, and he was complaining to himself. Don't be discouraged, Tatsumi. At this time, a stranger patted Tatsumi's shoulder, and he was shocked. Tatsumi looked around, but there was no one around. Is it my illusion? After looking around twice, Tatsumi retracted his gaze. Stupid Tatsumi, look clearly, it's me, Bullet. He patted Tatsumi's shoulder again, and the mysterious voice sounded again. Brother? Tatsumi was stunned when he heard the words, and he looked around with his eyes wide open. Don't look with your eyes, feel with your heart. This is one of the abilities of my ghost haunting. It can be transparent. Bullet explained in a low voice. Is this the Taigu? It's also powerful. Tatsumi suddenly showed an envious expression when he heard the words. Such a powerful ability was rare in the world. Tatsumi saw it and remembered it in his mind. By the way, when Dustless and Akame sneaked onto the ship, why didn't anyone check them? When I just said that I was a handyman, I went through a lot of interrogation. Tatsumi complained with dissatisfaction, with an unlucky expression. Looking at Akame and Dustless who were dancing in the distance, he was envious and jealous. They were all members of the night raid. Why was the gap so big? Dustless and Akame pretended to be husband and wife, while Tatsumi miserably pretended to be a cook and a handyman to sneak in. They look like husband and wife. Leaning against the cabin, he looked straight at Wu Chun and Chi Tong. Wu Chun was elegant and graceful, while Chi Tong had dressed up meticulously. Her appearance was even more soul-stirring. Her skin was fair and beautiful, and her facial features were flawless, like a masterpiece carved by the heavens. The two of them displayed their superb acting skills, and the people around them were less wary of them. Damn it. I'm always the one who gets into trouble. Why do I have to team up with my brother? He is gay. Looking at Bullet who stared at himself affectionately, Tatsumi almost vomited blood. People were really annoying. Chapter 1626. Bullet's eyes were deep and bright, filled with an invisible flame. He stared at the short Tatsumi, and Bullet's eyes were enough to melt him easily. Seeing this, Tatsumi's heart beat faster, and he looked up at Bullet in horror. He used to think that Dustless was dangerous, but compared with Bullet, Dustless was too cute and kind in some aspects. Hum. A long and noble tune rang out in the air. Following that, the previously bustling ship instantly became abnormally noisy and filled with terrified voices. Damn, my head hurts. What's going on? My head hurts too. Damn it. Could it be Minister Ernest's subordinate? Everyone, cover your ears quickly. Don't listen to this melody. The tourists on the ship suddenly screamed in horror. The screams were full of endless pain, like headless flies bumping around. Everyone showed a painful expression, and was very sad. Plop. Some people couldn't resist the pain, and they directly jumped into the water, and chose to kill themselves. This is... At the same time on the other side, Chi Tong and Dustless also deliberately fainted on the ground. Chi Tong's whole body was tightly pressed on Dustless. Because of the distance, Dustless inevitably touched some places that should not be touched, and so did Chi Tong. It's just acting, you don't have to be so professional. Dustless opened his eyes, and half of Chi Tong's beautiful face was directly pressed on Dustless's neck, and he could feel the hot touch. Don't talk, continue to pretend to be unconscious, and when those people come out, we will ambush them unexpectedly. Chi Tong opened her eyes and glanced at Dustless, then closed them again, and then pretended to be dead on Dustless's neck, and did not move, which was very professional. It's a waste of a professional like you to not make movies in this world. Dustless stared at Chi Tong dumbfounded. Although this girl said it calmly and simply, her tone seemed that she did not care about being taken advantage of by Dustless at all. However, because Chi Tong's whole body was pressed on him, Dustless could still feel Chi Tong's accelerated heartbeat, and in fact, he was also very nervous. What a pity. It was undeniable that Scarlet Eye's plan wasn't perfect, but it wasn't bad. He deliberately pretended to be unconscious, and waited for the enemy to relax before dealing a fatal blow. However, in this world, no matter what time it was, there would always be some troublemakers. Damn it, what's going on? Where did this melody come from? It's so powerful that it's swaying when it walks. Tatsumi covered his head. His head was also painful as if it was being torn apart. He was dizzy and walked around like a dizzy duck. He couldn't even distinguish the most basic directions. Aha! There's actually someone who can persevere. Not bad. I thought that all the people on this ship would be wiped out. I didn't expect that there would be a fish that escaped the net. Not bad. However, it is also because you are extraordinary that it shows that you are not simple. Kid, you should be the one who attacked at night. The three beastmen walked out of the cabin. The one who spoke was one of the three beastmen, the former General Riva. But now he had become as Death's lackey. Did the three of you do it? The melody stopped. Tatsumi looked at the three people in front of him with a pale face. His shining eyes were dotted with stars. Oh, do you still have the strength to talk? It's really extraordinary. One of the three beastmen, the blonde kid, was called Nyo. She looked at the unyielding Tatsumi with surprise and said, You can still burst out with such a strong will. You are definitely not an ordinary human. There is no doubt that you are a member of the night raid. With the existence of Tatsumi, I know that your plan will fail. Dustless ridiculed Scarlet Eye with a smile. His voice was as soft as a mosquito and only Scarlet Eye could hear it. Is it? Hearing this, Scarlet Eye's performance was mediocre. She looked at Tatsumi, who wanted to fight with the three beast men, and suddenly showed an expression of appreciation. Tatsumi is not as weak as you think. Then you watch carefully. Dustless also stared at Tatsumi, who was confronting the three beastmen with interest. He really didn't know where this kid got the courage to 1v3. You scum, disappear. Tatsumi held a wide and thick sword in both hands. Immediately, he stomped his feet on the ground. His body suddenly jumped up and swept to the sky. Finally, he slashed at the three beastmen, with the force of falling from the sky. Leva snorted when he saw the situation. He immediately rushed out and shouted, "Where did this brat come from? Go home and play house. You are full of flaws." Bang bang bang. As soon as his voice fell, the miserable Tatsumi suddenly flew out. He was kicked more than 10 meters away by Leva. Tatsumi's head was on the ground, and his buttocks were sticking out miserably. He was in an extremely embarrassing situation. Pucci, Dustless, who couldn't help laughing, glanced at Scarlet Eye. This guy was also disappointed. Scarlet Eye originally saw that Tatsumi used to practice so hard. His strength must have improved, but according to the current situation, the essence of Tatsumi's embroidered pillow had not changed. This kid looks frustrated. At first glance, he is the kind of person who will die early. It is useless to catch him. Nyo, quickly send this eyesore clown to heaven. Looking at his face, I know that he is a real waste. Leva ordered with great disdain. Tatsumi was born with the expression of a passerby. Even Leva couldn't extract any information from him. Chapter 1627. You know you are useless just by looking at your face? This sentence was like a nightmare that could not be dismissed, lingering in Tatsumi's mind for a long time. What's the use of looking at my face? What's more, how do you know that I am possessed by the god of misfortune? Tatsumi's self-esteem was challenged by Leva. He quickly stood up and said sarcastically, "With your level, the elder brother can easily solve it." Elder brother? Is it the guy Dustless? A cunning look flashed through his eyes. Leva asked calmly, deliberately stimulating Tatsumi's nerves. You are not even worthy to carry shoes for Dustless. After all, we have fought with him. I still feel that it is a dream to be alive. My elder brother is Bullet. Tatsumi retorted with a red face. He and Dustless had deep resentment. How could he recognize such a person as his elder brother? Didos knew. It seems that in addition to this guy, there are other people on the ship. You two go to search carefully. They are likely to be disguised. Remember to touch everyone's face. Leva said to the other two beasts. He originally felt strange. Tatsumi was so weak. How could they send such a small person to attack at night? There must be other helpers. Is this Tatsumi's head broken by the door? Dustless, who deliberately pretended to be dead, said speechlessly. He had already seen New and Didos coming over. It was only a matter of time to remove his and Akame's disguise. There are indeed some problems. This time Akame also stood on Dustless's side. She did not defend Tatsumi. Tatsumi's behavior was clearly to cheat his teammates. Let's do it, Akame. Glancing at Akame, who was lying on his body, Dustless's eyes flashed a cold light. Do it quickly. Akame nodded, under Dustless's incredible and surprised gaze. Akame's right arm slowly stretched to her trousers, then she directly untied it and took out her taigu, Murasame. I had no choice. This banquet doesn't allow anyone to bring weapons. I had no choice but to come up with another plan. Chitong looked at Dustless in embarrassment. But there's no need to hide it in your pants, Dustless complained in his heart. He was too lazy to dwell on this issue. Let's do it. They're coming. Looking closely, Didos and Nia were gradually approaching Dustless and Scarlet Eye. Clang 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 clang. Chitong suddenly unsheathed his long saber, and a cold light shot out. Seeing the right time, Chitong turned into an afterimage and shot out, crossing a distance of several meters in an instant. Pucci. Didos, one of the three beast men, was killed by Scarlet Pupil in an instant. Swish. Swish. Chi-Tong did not stop there. Instead he looked at another target. An Wu. You want to kill me? No way. The death of his teammate gave An Wu a chance to catch his breath. At the same time, he caught sight of Chi-Tong pouncing on him. He immediately used his special flute to block the incoming attack. Clang 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 clang. Sparks splashed in the void. Chi-Tong and An Wu were entangled. Although An Wu was prepared, he was still sent flying by the brute force of Chi-Tong's attack. Bang bang. Crack crack. An Wu's body slammed heavily on the cabin. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. This guy is so strong. Although Chi-Tong had injured An Wu, he obviously did not have enough strength to kill him. However, this was normal. After all, Chi-Tong was not a strength-type player like Bullet. It seems like I don't need to do anything. Seeing this, Dustless decisively chose to continue playing dead. Creak. However, at this moment, the soldiers hidden in the cabin all rushed out. An extremely unexpected figure suddenly walked out with his head held high. This guy is here too? Seeing the majestic figure with golden hair, Dustless frowned slightly. This person had a majestic appearance. His face was meticulous, and his face was full of majesty. He looked very domineering. General Bude. Chi-Tong's eyes were full of caution and spoke out the identity of this person. The person in front of him was another great general with the same name as his death, Bude. His strength was beyond doubt. Since he could sit in the position of a great general and have the same name as his death, he must be a strong man with enough strength. However, what Dustless cared about was not this. Blinking his eyes, Dustless's closed eyes opened again, and there was a puzzled expression in his eyes. Why is this old guy here? So after that. Then he thought about it a little and felt relieved. General Bude used his own power to protect a lot of conscientious civil officials. These people are probably his people. It's understandable to protect these civil officials. They are all political enemies of Minister Ernest. Dustless, who understood, was relieved. He stared at General Bude with a slightly playful expression. The current situation seems to be extremely unfavorable for Chi-Tong and others. The appearance of General Bude changed the whole situation at once. Where is Bullet? If he doesn't come out, Tatsumi will die. Observation hockey quietly spread out. Dustless tried to find Bullet's breath, and soon this guy floated into his eyes. He was quite surprised to find that this guy was beside him. This old guy isn't trying to assassinate me, is he? Curious, Dustless did not take the initiative to talk to Tatsumi, but continued to play dead, as if he saw nothing. However, Bullet did not buy it. Why are you deliberately targeting Tatsumi? We should be companions. The voice full of dissatisfaction rang in Dustless's ears. The voice was so low that only he could barely hear it. Others could not hear Bullet's hoarse voice. Chapter 16:28. When Bullet's words fell, Dustless opened his eyes. His eyes were slightly surprised. He sighed at the greatness of gay love. He didn't expect that Bullet would fall out with him for Tatsumi. In fact, there is no reason. I just feel uncomfortable looking at that naive kid all day long. Dustless said an answer that made Bullet angry. This was also a common problem of Dustless. People with protagonist aura were often very annoying. He always sneered at the kind of thinking that his own idea was right and others were wrong. Bullet, who was stunned by Dustless's nonsensical answer, was furious. Dustless, for such a ridiculous answer, you deliberately targeted Tatsumi? You even almost killed him several times. You think it's ridiculous? Wu Chen lazily glanced at Bullet, and then shook his head gently. Sure enough, we're not on the same path. I have nothing to say to you. Since we're not on the same path, I won't see you off. Same. Glancing coldly at Dustless, Bullet flicked his sleeves and left. It seemed that he was going to find trouble with Leva. At the same time, Bullet's resolute and decisive declaration echoed in Dustless's ears. No matter what, I will protect Tatsumi. Don't ask me why. Just because he called me big brother just now. This guy is looking for death. Is he deliberately making an enemy of me? Staring at Bullets' back, if possible, Dustless really didn't want to kill him. Although this guy was gay, he was still a good person. Why did he have to protect Tatsumi, the Jinx? It's time for the disguise mission to end. Staring at the robust figure approaching Scarlet Pupil, it was General Bude. His majestic height was several times larger than Scarlet Pupil. It was obvious who was at a disadvantage. It's really sad. Geniuses like you can become the future pillars of the empire. General Bude walked in front of Scarlet Pupil with great oppression. Seeing Scarlet Pupil's firm eyes, he smacked his lips and sighed very sentimentally. But his eyes were full of killing intent when he looked at Scarlet Pupil. If people like you aren't killed as soon as possible, you'll be a huge problem in the future. Great General Budo restrained his emotions, and they were replaced by endless coldness. Cunning old fox. Scarlet Eye snorted warily. Perhaps Grand General Bude already knew that the three beasts had infiltrated the ship. The reason why he didn't rush to stop the three beasts from killing the civil officials was because he had the same plan as the three beasts, to lure the night raid out to court death. It's not that I'm cunning, it's just that you guys are too immature. With a look of devastation in his eyes, Great General Bude crossed several meters in a single step, and arrived in front of Chi Tong in the blink of an eye. His mighty fist smashed down. So fast. Akame's pupils constricted. After a moment of shock, she hurriedly took out her katana to block the attack. Bang bang bang. The result was just as Dustless had guessed. Chi Tong was forced to retreat repeatedly. In terms of swordsmanship, Scarlet Eye might be good, but in terms of strength, she was much weaker. She was sent flying by General Bude's punch, her face pale. The old guy's strength is not small. Dustless looked at General Bude in surprise. The Taigu of this old guy was also an extremely top existence. It could control the powerful natural forces such as thunder and lightning. Not only was his speed strong, but also his strength. Scarlet Eye could not occupy any advantage. What a strong power. Feeling the overwhelming power of General Bude, Scarlet Eye, whose face changed slightly, said to herself cautiously. The eyes that usually looked at her own people as gentle as water were wise and bright at the moment, trying to capture the loopholes of General Bude. Maybe you can completely surpass me in a few years, but as for now. General Bude slowly approached Scarlet Eye. Seeing that she could still stand firm, he gave Scarlet Eye a look of appreciation. He used all his strength in the blow just now. Now I have the advantage of age after all. Go to hell, young man. General Bude once again appeared behind Scarlet Eye in a flash. The exaggerated and abnormal speed of thunder and lightning was revealed. Scarlet Eye didn't even have time to react. The reaction speed of human beings was always fundamental to lightning. After all, not everyone had observation haki and mini dojutsu like Dustless. Oh no! Noticing the sudden appearance of General Bude, Scarlet Eye secretly cursed. She turned her head to look. General Bude's strong and powerful fist had already smashed to her head. She would definitely die if she was hit directly. Wansho Tensei. At the critical moment, Dustless did not hesitate to stand up and disturb the situation. His right hand gently grabbed into the void. Scarlet Eye's body flew into Dustless's arms uncontrollably. Is this gravity? Squinting his eyes and carefully feeling the power that had not dissipated in the void, General Bude was quite surprised. His eyes could not help but follow the source. Among the 48 Taigu, it seemed that there was no weapon that controlled gravity. Little old man Bud, you're already so old yet you're bullying a teenage girl. The word shameless is tailor-made for you. General Bude heard Dustless's harsh ridicule. He could not help but raise his eyebrows. After staring at Dustless for a while, he said in a very surprised tone, "You are really similar to the dead prince. You can simply pass off as the real one." "It's none of my business." Dustless heard the words and disdained. He was not interested in the so-called prince, but Scarlet Eye's eyes flashed with amazement. She looked at Dustless with her eyes full of brilliance. It seemed that she had thought of a good plan. This kid is the Dustless that his death said? On the surface, he is indeed extraordinary, and his ability is quite strange. No wonder his death wants to join forces with me to deal with him. General Bude's eyes were fixed on Dustless's head. He could not help but nod with satisfaction. He could feel that Dustless was extraordinary just by looking at his face. Even if he knew his identity as a general, he was very calm. Chapter 1629. General Budo's eyes widened. He looked at Dustless as if he was looking at a dead person. The dead eyes made everyone feel numb. The atmosphere of the whole ship was extremely depressing. This old fox. Leva of the three beasts saw General Budo, and immediately understood the cause and effect. He recalled that it was no wonder that he could board this big ship safely. It was most likely that this strong old man acquiesced. He not only wanted to annihilate the members of the night raid, but also wanted to kill the three beasts. He could even use this opportunity to attack Esteth and kill Minister Ernest. You who want to destroy the peace of the Empire, this time I will let you try the sanction of my Taiguth under God's wrath. Admalek. General Budo shook his thick arms, and suddenly there was a dull explosion. His arms were wrapped with heavy iron piles, and the strength and power of the attack were bound to increase. Dustless was okay. People like Akame or Bullet would not be able to bear the consequences if they were hit. Bring it on. Turning a deaf ear to General Budo's demonstration, Dustless just hooked his thumb contemptuously. You want to die? Seeing this, Grand General Bud immediately launched a powerful attack. His whole body emitted lightning, crackling and flashing, and collided head-on with a straight light. Boom boom boom. Even because the speed of General Budo's running was too exaggerated, the ship swayed slightly with his steps. Every time the blonde old man took a step, the wooden deck would be crushed by him. What an amazing momentum! Is this the combat power of the Empire's strongest general? It's really strong. Esteth is also at the same level as Budo. Akame was secretly shocked. Unless it was a life-or-death fight, she had no chance to win. Fortunately, we still have Dustless on our side. The situation is 2 against 2, it is fair. Akame's tight face was relieved, and she smiled easily. God was always fair. Armament hockey hardening. The white arms suddenly turned dark black, and Wuchen also attacked without the slightest bit of fear. Boom boom boom. Their fists collided and a powerful shock wave spread out. Tatsumi was caught off guard and Akame, and the others were forced to retreat. Bang. Scarlet Pupil was fine after all. Her strength was worthy of recognition. On the contrary, Tatsumi was not so lucky. His body was thrown out and smashed on the deck. The pain was unbearable. Although his body was in pain, Tatsumi's mental blow was more serious. Can I really reach that level? Tatsumi was at a loss. For the first time he doubted Bullet. He always felt that this guy was fooling him. After all, Dustless's strength was unreliable. Not to mention fighting with Dustless, he even had to stay far away from the battle. If he was not careful, he would be affected. Swish. Swish. A black shadow roared and attacked Tatsumi, who was in a daze. He was punched again. Bang. Tatsumi, who was suffering unspeakably, spat out a mouthful of blood again. The smell of blood in his mouth assailed his nostrils, and the blood stained his entire gums. You dare to be distracted while fighting with me? Are you an idiot, or are you confident in your own strength? Leva's sarcasm was not concealed. He sneered at Tatsumi and sneered unceremoniously. Is Bullet's head rusty? During the time when you joined the night raid, it seems that your mind and spirit have fallen. I really don't know why he values a mediocre person like you. Bullet is really ignorant. Leva curled his lips and unscrupulously despised Tatsumi. Originally, he thought that even if Tatsumi's strength was not good, he had some skills. At least, he was worthy of others' respect. After testing a few more times, he found that Tatsumi was just an embroidered pillow. No, I understand the reason why Bullet values you. If you think about it carefully, you actually have your own strengths. No wonder Bullet will treat you differently. At this moment, Leva changed the thread of discussion. His eyes flashed with light. He obviously thought of something and took back his words. Really? What's so different about me? Tatsumi was also interested. Originally, he thought that he was an ordinary person and there was nothing special about him. But after listening to Leva, he also understood that he was a person who was pitted by God. Hee. Leva smiled and immediately grinned. You are very lucky. After all, Luck is also a part of strength. And there is another thing that I admire very much. You can take a beating. How many times have you been knocked down to the ground? And it's difficult for you to stand up. How hard is your skin? After that, Leva showed a look of, I'm not as good as you. You. Tatsumi's face was red and he was angry. Was this an advantage? Was this a compliment to him? This was worse than pointing at his nose and swearing. Humph, there is no need to argue with a small character like you. Glancing at him coldly, Tatsumi also rarely talked nonsense with Leva. This guy was just a lackey of his death. Talking nonsense with him would make him lose his status. Big brother values me because I have the confidence to defeat Dustless. Tatsumi's mind flashed with brilliance. This might be the fundamental reason. Are you kidding me? Leva sneered more unscrupulously when he heard the words. He stared at Tatsumi with an expression of looking at an idiot and said unceremoniously, You are just a trash? I have fought with that guy and I know the horror of Dustless. Recalling the process of fighting with Dustless, Leva's face showed a touch of fear. He stared at Tatsumi and said disdainfully, I can defeat 10 Tatsumi, and his death can even defeat 10 of me. And Dustless can easily play tricks on his death. His combat power is 10 times higher than his death. You dare to dream of defeating Dustless? Are you a pig? Chapter 1630. Are you a pig? This sentence robbed Tatsumi a lot, and his body could not help but tremble. Even if he was not as good as Dustless, he did not need to ridicule him so ruthlessly. It hurt his self-esteem. General Leva, what you said is too much. Beside Tatsumi, Bullet appeared without warning, and his indifferent eyes were full of annoyance. Hey Bullet, I know you are wandering around me. Leva smiled indifferently and shrugged helplessly. Who let you value this incompetent kid so much? And your skill of hiding is excellent. As long as I deliberately ridicule him, you will definitely show up. After all, you are the kind of person who values friendship. I know you too well. You deserve to be my former boss. You really know me well. Bullet just faintly responded, and then glanced at Tatsumi. He saw his decadence and frustration. Seeing his face full of disappointment and loneliness, he did not know what to do. Who asked Liwa to speak the truth? Let's perform the task first. Kill the 3 beastmen. Bullet was too lazy to entangle with Tatsumi's affairs. Everyone had their own fate. As the saying goes, the master can lead the way, but it depends on the person. He had done what he could do for Tatsumi. What happened next was Tatsumi's own business. At the same time, there was also a fierce battle in another direction. Boom boom boom. The dazzling lightning all hit Dustless's body. He was hit hard in an instant. His body immediately sunk, and then he could not bear the powerful force and burst open. Did it succeed? General Buddha stared anxiously. Just now for a few minutes, he couldn't even catch Dustless's body. Now that he finally caught the real body and destroyed it, he was very excited and happy. Boom boom boom. Dustless's body finally burst open, and turned into light all over the sky. If it was put on ordinary people, he would be dead. However, after seeing Dustless's abnormality, General Bude's old face suddenly collapsed. Looking at the golden photons all over the sky, he could not help but burst out. Damn, what kind of Taigu is this bastard? General Bude was extremely angry. Dustless was far more troublesome than he imagined. If the opponent was a powerful enemy, there would at least be a possibility of defeating the opponent. But if the opponent was air that you couldn't hit, could you win? I'm giving in to you. But not only are you not grateful, you're insulting me instead. TSK, using scum to describe you is an insult to this noble word. Dustless, who had just repaired his body, teased in a sarcastic tone. If you have the guts, fight me fair and square. General Budo clenched his fists and roared. He was particularly miserable because he couldn't hit Dustless's body at all. He was being played around like a clown. If you dare to fight me head-on, I'll beat you up so badly that even your own mother won't recognize you. General Budo stared at Dustless confidently, hoping to goad Dustless into throwing away his advantage. Really? Then I will fulfill your wish. Dustless glanced at General Bude, then turned into a thick beam of light and flew out. Lightspeed kick. When he appeared again, he was in front of General Budo, followed by a dazzling beam of light, all of which exploded on General Budo's rough face. Boom, boom, boom. General Budo's body was swept away by a magnificent flash of light. Dustless kicked him dozens of meters away, smashing through several wooden rooms. If he didn't react in time, this kick would have been enough to kick General Budo into the sea and take a bath with sharks. How is this possible? Could it be that he was giving in to me just now? This kid is not the kind of person who respects the old and loves the young. General Budo's heart was in a perilous situation. He touched his stinging face and immediately grimaced in pain. He couldn't help but feel sad that he wanted to cry but had no tears. General Budo could even feel that his face had been kicked askew. Just now, he was shamelessly boasting that he would beat Dustless to the point that even his own mother wouldn't recognize him. Now the result was the opposite. General Budo was 100% sure that if he returned to the imperial capital, the great emperor wouldn't recognize him. The person who was beaten to the point that even his own mother wouldn't recognize him wasn't Dustless, but General Budo. Phew, phew, phew. At the same time, a flash of light suddenly appeared behind him. The cold voice made General Budo sweat profusely, and he turned his head stiffly like a robot. Bang, bang, bang. An iron fist came to his face. General Budo's face suddenly caved in. His nose was directly beaten into a bloody mess, and even disappeared out of thin air. Bang, bang. General Budo was blown more than 10 meters away by Dustless's punch. He was lying on the deck half dead, and his faint breathing could still be heard faintly. He was so close to the gate of hell. What kind of monster is that guy? Bullet, who was fighting with Leva, was stunned. His eyes were staring at Dustless in horror. This guy was so horrible that he could cripple a general with one punch and one kick. Sure enough, it's almost the same as I predicted. The strength of this guy is at least 10 times more than Master's death. Leva also had a cold expression. This scene was too incredible. One punch and one kick to kill one of the strongest in the Empire. It was enough to dislocate people's jaws. Can I really surpass this kind of monster? Tatsumi couldn't bear the blow, and took the initiative to cover his eyes. If he continued to watch this scene, he would have trouble sleeping and eating. Such a nightmare enemy could be called a godlike existence. So powerful. Akame's eyes were full of brilliance. She deeply admired Dustless's overwhelming strength. After all, it was a world where the strong were respected. A person who could kill a general in seconds was definitely more popular than the weak. Chapter 1631. Damn it, no wonder that his death bowed to me. It turned out that all the reasons were for him. Hateful, I should have joined forces with this death to deal with this kid. Looking at the approaching Dustless, General Budo finally gritted his teeth and stood up. Oh, very strong, you can still stand up. Dustless's eyes flashed a ripple and immediately said, but it's a pity. Whoosh. As soon as the voice fell, Dustless's body immediately shone, and the golden beam began to wander again. Hateful. Witnessing such a scene, Grand General Budo complained incessantly. But now that things had come to this, he had no choice but to bite the bullet. Dustless would never let him off, and Grand General Budo wouldn't let Dustless off either. In the end, it was the same. There was no possibility of reconciliation. Boom. The silver light echoed between heaven and earth. General Budo, who had been devastated, had to burst out the last strength to deal with it. He turned into a lightning storm and attacked. Whoosh. General Budo waved his arms with all his might. Light balls about the size of a human head shot out from his arms one after another, densely rolling towards Dustless. One after another, the number was endless, and each of them was extraordinary. Boom. Dustless did not stop and continued to walk leisurely. The silver energy ball exploded on his body, but in any case, Dustless did not suffer any harm, similar to the transparent people. Kakaka. The violent explosion caused the deck of the ship to collapse, and the whole ship had a tendency to tilt, but Grand General Budo still attacked Dustless with all his might. There was no sign of stopping, and he wanted to completely destroy it. Has the sun set? Suddenly, he turned his head and swept to the distant crimson sky. The fiery red sun had set over the mountain, and unknowingly, the darkness had quietly come. Let's stop here. Dustless gradually lost interest in continuing the entertainment, and his mind waned. Looking at the crazy General Budo, his body burst into golden light, and a flash swept in front of him. Let me teach you how to use lightning, right, 1,000 birds. The silver dazzling thunder roared out, and went straight to General Budo's internal organs. Because the flash was too dazzling, looking at each other could make people dizzy. General Budo was no exception. Even if he was aware of Dustless's attack, he could only close his eyes helplessly. In particular, the thousands of thunder made him even more frightened. Poochie. The flash and thousands of birds were all extinguished, and the world was very quiet at this moment, but everyone's eyes were on General Budo. Victory and defeat has been decided. Staring at General Budo's pale face, Dustless was unusually calm. Following his line of sight, one could see that General Budo had a bloody hole in his chest. Papa. Not only that, but inside General Budo's abdomen, there was also crackling lightning, burning his internal organs, mercilessly destroying all the organs of his body. Sensing the rapid loss of his life force, Grand General Budo closed his eyes in despair, as if he had already admitted defeat. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it. Looking at General Budo regretfully, since he knew this would happen, he shouldn't have been so arrogant. If he had kept a low profile, this wouldn't have happened. All of this was General Budo asking for humiliation. Goodbye. Patting the dust off his body, Dustless was about to leave, but suddenly he found a thick arm grabbing him, powerful and extremely strong, and forcibly pulled back Dustless, who wanted to leave. Raising his head to look at the instigator, Dustless shockingly discovered that it was Grand General Budo. This old guy opened his eyes again, and showed an extremely crazy and cunning expression. You've been fooled. General Budo's unusually proud laughter resounded through the boundless night sky. He quickly took out a special needle and stabbed it into his neck without hesitation. An unknown liquid flowed down the pillow into General Budo's body. You're too strong, let me strengthen you first. A large number of blue veins appeared on his neck. General Budo looked at Dustless with a ferocious expression. At this moment, Dustless was like a little lamb, extremely weak in the eyes of General Budo. Very surprised, right? General Budo laughed sinisterly. Very surprised indeed. Dustless heard this and fixed his eyes on General Budo, sighing. I thought you were a person who disdained to play tricks, but I didn't expect that I was wrong. Dustless confessed to this without concealing anything. It could be considered that he had suffered a setback. After all, although he was powerful, it was also impossible to see through everyone's thoughts. So what if you caught me? You think you can still turn the tables? Looking at General Budo's destroyed organs, Dustless said with pity. Now you're just relying on medicine. Of course I still have things to do. That is to take you down with me. General Budo roared. Pa pa pa. At the same time, the extinguished taiga once again emitted lightning. All rushed to Dustless's body. He suddenly looked like a lightning man. His whole body was emitting huge thunder and lightning. Although the thunder and lightning can't hurt you, there's still a fatal place. Looking at Dustless, who was swallowed by lightning, General Budo loosened his right arm and laughed with victory in his hand. You should be weak now, have no strength to move, right? Thunder and lightning can paralyze you. Poochie. Poochie. General Budo's voice just fell. Two lights flashed. Dustless waved the sword as if nothing happened. The sharp edge cut off General Budo's arms one after another. Boom. The bloody arms fell to the ground. General Budo collapsed, and his mind was blank. You want to paralyze me with your half-baked lightning? Are you an idiot? Chapter 1632. Hearing Dustless's ridicule, General Budo did not attack back this time. Perhaps he had accepted this cruel fact in his heart. Dustless was an existence that he looked up to. Haha. General Budo suddenly smiled stupidly. Even if his arms were cut off by Dustless, he did not feel the slightest pain. His heart was desperate and numb. Go to hell with me, General Budo said crazily. At the same time, his taiga broke out a destructive super thunder and lightning. Strangely, it did not attack Dustless. but gathered on General Budo's body. Boom boom boom. The void that was still quiet suddenly became violent. The lightning surged, the thick silver thunder dragon turned over in the clouds. The scene was amazing. It turns out that you want to drag me to hell with you? Dustless stared at the thunder and lightning that overflowed from General Budo's body, and he suddenly understood something. Boom boom boom. The violent thunder and lightning fell from the sky. The unparalleled destructive power, the autumn wind swept the fallen leaves, and the cruelly destroyed the sailing ship. Phew phew phew. Dustless's body flashed suddenly. He took the lead to rush to the front of Akame, grasped Akame's body tightly, and immediately threw her into the water without hesitation. Boom boom boom. The next second, the whole ship was attacked by lightning. It burned with a thick flame in an instant. The ship of hundreds of meters turned into a fire ship. Dustless, Akame, who poked her head out from the bottom of the water, was full of worry. At the same time, she was unwilling to feel frustrated. She secretly clenched her fists. After all, she was still too weak. Dustless saved her again. He turned himself into a thunder and electromagnetic field, attracting the thunder and lightning in the sky. Does Budo still have such a powerful trick? He is really cunning. Death, who stood at the port, looked far away, looking at the burning ship and the thunder elemental power in the distant void. She vaguely guessed that the initiator was General Budo, turning oneself into a thunder and electromagnetic field, attracting the power hovering in the sky to execute heavenly punishment. This was one of the strongest moves of General Bude. At the same time, it was also the move he used to perish together with Dustless. Ah, what a pity. At this moment, the frivolous voice of a young man came from the flaming ship. Looking closely, it was the sloppy Dustless. He was dressed in bright clothes, his face was rosy, and his expression was joyful. He didn't look like he was about to receive divine punishment at all. Instead, he looked as excited as if he was going on a vacation. Pucci. Looking at the unscathed Dustless, General Budo vomited blood and fell to the ground. Looking at his unwilling expression, he was probably angered to death by Dustless. Tsk. Now that this guy has been dealt with, it's Bullet's turn. He's the main dish this time. With a bloodthirsty smile on his face, Dustless strolled to the place where Bullet and Leva were fighting. His devilish smile made people shudder. He threw Scarlet Pupil out not only to save her, but also to create a good environment to kill Bullet. As the best villain, not only did he have to trap the enemy, but he also had to scheme against his own people. Even his teammates were no exception. Anyone who defied Dustless's will would definitely die. Damn it. That old man even wants to kill me. The place where Leva and Bullet were fighting had already been reduced to ruins. The surroundings were burning with a blazing sea of fire. Both Leva and Bullet were extremely miserable. Before the two of them started fighting, they were attacked by General Bullet, who summoned thunder and lightning. That terrifying heavenly punishment attack was too frightening. Even if the two of them didn't die, they were seriously injured by the lightning. Bullet's body was even emitting a burnt smell. Leva wasn't any better. Tatsumi, it's yours from now on. Handing the machete that summoned the ghost haunt armor to Tatsumi, Bullet showed a painful expression. The thunder and lightning attack did seriously injure him. Brother, you. Although Tatsumi was quite excited, looking at Bullet's painful expression, he still couldn't hold back the sadness in his heart. Idiot, I'm not dead yet. It's not too late to cry for me when I'm dead. Bullet laughed and scolded. You take Ghost Haunt back temporarily. I'll hold this guy back. No, brother, Puff. Bullet didn't give Tatsumi a chance to speak. He directly kicked Tatsumi out of the sea of fire. In the world of fire, only Bullet and Leva were left. It's great, Bullet. Sacrificing yourself for others? Your style is really not like an assassin. Leva stood up and said, Do you want to die with me? Of course not, I will leave after killing you. Bullet shook his head. He didn't plan to die now. He let Tatsumi take away Ghost Haunt, because Bullet didn't have extra strength to use it in his current state, so it was better to let Tatsumi take it away. Yo, Bullet. At this moment, a voice that surprised Bullet suddenly sounded. Looking at the source, it was Dustless, who walked over with a smile. You're not dead? Bullet said in surprise. It was already a miracle that he was still alive after suffering such a terrifying attack, and Dustless was completely unscathed right now. Of course. Buddha, on the other hand, is deader than dead. Dustless walked to Bullet harmlessly, and a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Bullet, I have something to tell you. Is it important? Bullet frowned when he heard the words, and then asked, just say it. You're so generous. Dustless smiled, and immediately a cold light flashed in his eyes. His right arm penetrated Bullet's heart like a blade. You have to hinder me from killing Tatsumi. Can you please die? Chapter 1633. This sudden scene not only shocked Bullet, but also Leva, the great enemy, was dumbfounded and at a loss. Aren't these two teammates colluding with each other? Isn't everyone in the night raid loving each other? How could there be such a good show of killing each other? How dare this guy? How dare he? How dare he? Bullet kept repeating this sentence, and his stunned eyes gave people the illusion that he was dreaming. Dustless didn't come to save him, but directly killed him. Poochie Dustless's strength went deeper, Bullet's body was badly mutilated, and the tingling pain spread all over his body. Bullet's body was covered with cold sweat, and his face was suddenly as pale as blood. He clenched his fists tightly, and he had to loosen them. Bullet had no extra strength to continue fighting with Dustless. Gee. Looking around, Dustless tried to find the trace of Tatsumi, but he helplessly found that the kid had disappeared in advance, and he probably escaped again. That kid's luck is pretty good. He always has the foresight to slip away in advance. However, being able to get rid of you this time is also a pleasant surprise. Bullet, I thought you would also run away. Dustless teased with a playful tone. Looking at Bullet, who was in pain, the depths of his eyes were as cold as ice, without a trace of pity or sympathy. The road is his own choice, no one forced him, and he will pay the price if he goes wrong. Dustless? The boss will not let you go. Bullet's face darkened as he roared. He could still feel at ease if he had died in the hands of the enemy. After all, he had died in battle. However, he had been killed by his own people for no reason. How could this be? Bullet's heart was extremely depressed. Gee, I'm really sorry. No one knows about this. Pointing to Riva, Dustless said with a smile. Bullet and Riva, one of the three beasts, fell after the battle, and I, Uchiha Dustless, bravely saved him. In the end, although I didn't save Bullet, I helped you to avenge him and killed Riva. What do you think of this script? Were you moved to tears when you heard that? Puff. As his voice fell, both Riva and Bullet couldn't hold back, and the two of them were seriously injured by Supreme General Budo before, and as a result, they couldn't hold back their blood. You despicable, shameless villain. The two of them stared at Dustless angrily. This guy's ability to make up a story is superb. He pushed all the blame and responsibility to Riva and Bullet, and Dustless himself was the savior. This gorgeous script may make Negenda reward Dustless, the culprit. Don't look at me with this kind of eyes that want to tear me into pieces. I said before, I didn't intend to kill you, but you had to collude with Tatsumi. If you want to blame, you can only blame your naivety and ignorance. Don't worry, Tatsumi will meet you soon. Poochie. Dustless increased his strength and instantly squeezed Bullet's heart. Aolo, 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 aolo. After letting out an extremely painful howl, Bullet's eyes dimmed as he fell to the ground. His face was filled with desolation and unwillingness. His eyes had completely darkened, and were extremely empty and gloomy. Tatsumi will definitely avenge me. Bullet unconsciously muttered to himself. He was close to sleep, but in fact, he was full of hesitation. Compared with Dustless, Tatsumi was simply a slag. It was more appropriate to call him Slag Rice. Next, it's you. Glancing at the fallen Bullet, Dustless's gaze then shifted to Leva. The latter immediately retreated a few steps in fear. This guy was really too evil. It was understandable that he was ruthless to the enemy, but he was also so cruel to his own people. Dustless's heresy refreshed Riva's understanding. Even as Death trusted her own people very much, but this guy could kill his companions at will. His means were worse than Death's. Go to hell. However, it was useless to escape. Dustless flashed and rushed in front of him. A cold light left a shocking wound on Riva's body. Plop! Although Riva was unwilling, he also fell to the ground, and his vitality accelerated. In a trance, he had seen the Grim Reaper with a sickle coming to take his life. I'm really merciful, Dustless muttered to himself. His indifferent face didn't show the slightest bit of guilt or self-blame. He had once given Bullet a chance, but Bullet insisted on going against him, and brought disgrace upon himself. You. Riva tried his best to open his eyes and stared at Dustless, who was close at hand. Finally, he whispered, "You crazy demon, death will definitely defeat you." Demon? Dustless revealed a puzzled expression when he heard that. He pretended to be sorrowful and said, "I let you two good brothers die together. Furthermore, it's still going to hell hand in hand. You two should thank me. My behavior is no different from that of an angel." Puff. In the end, Leva couldn't bear the blow and choked with sobs for the rest of his life. Soon after, he was angered to death. If angels were as black-bellied and callous as Dustless, the entire human race might have been destroyed countless years ago. Boom, boom, boom. The fire continued to burn, and everyone on the ship panicked. They were like headless flies, but they were already at the end of their rope. Now that the entire ship was on fire, and they were in the middle of the ocean, there was only one outcome for these people: death. The mission is completed, we can retreat. Although Tatsumi's record is less, we have General Bude, which is barely good. Chapter 1634. Time flew by, and 3 days later, the news of Bullet's death spread throughout the night raid. Everyone was quite sad. After all, they had spent a long time with Bullet. The result was exactly the same as Dustless's plan. Leva, one of the three beasts, took all the responsibility, and Dustless himself was the superhero of annihilating the enemy. Dustless put all the merits on his head shamelessly. However, this was not the most important thing. The key was that Boss Najenda and other members of the night raid were convinced by Dustless's answer, and they even specially gave him quite a generous reward. If Bullet in the underworld knew all this, he would be so angry that he would climb out of the coffin. Damn, no wonder I didn't find the set of ugly god armor, Ghost Haunt. It turned out that Tatsumi took it away. This damn kid. Every time he escapes, his luck is too good. At the base of the night raid, looking at Tatsumi, who was training hard outside the window, Dustless's complaints about him multiplied. This kid's luck was really too good. Now Tatsumi had put on Ghost Haunt, and trained like Bullet, even crazier than Bullet. After all, Bullet's death was caused by his cowardice. Who? Boss Najenda knocked on the table, then smoked leisurely, and then said softly, "Ghost Haunt is Bullet's relic, and at the same time, Bullet took the initiative to give it to Tatsumi. I intend to respect Bullet's choice. The next user of Ghost Haunt, Tatsumi." I know, Bullet originally valued Tatsumi, and it's reasonable to give it to him. Dustless didn't refute when he heard the words. This was what he expected. The only thing worth complaining about was that Tatsumi and Bullet's relationship was too good. It seemed that he was the one who took advantage of Bullet every time. Cough, cough, cough. Everyone be quiet, I have another important emergency to announce. Najenda's expression suddenly became serious and serious. It's a good thing to kill General Bullet this time. It's an unexpected surprise. Dustless should record it. I agree. Akame was the first to stand up and nod in agreement. If it weren't for Dustless, she might have been killed by General Bude's exaggerated move. Therefore, Akame was grateful to Dustless. This dissolute fellow. Mine saw Akame's affectionate and grateful eyes, and immediately felt a threat. She also looked at Dustless, but it was the kind of scorching and extremely unpleasant. Damn it, why is there such a huge gap between us? How many days has it been since this kid started his night raid? She actually won the attention of mine and Akame at the same time? I am the elder of the night raid. Why is my Najenda like a stone? Even Leonette also treats Dustless differently, including Hill. Dustless once saved her life. Dustless also seems to trust Dustless very much. Damn it, this guy is an unprecedented crisis for me. Lubbock saw such a scene, he wanted to cry but had no tears. He stared at Dustless with jealousy. If he didn't do well, His agenda would be taken by this kid first. I heard that his death recently set up a special force. The members are the same Taigu users as you. If I am right, they are all used against us. Najenda was cautious, and her light purple eyes were full of tension. She subconsciously touched the destroyed eyes and the mechanical arm. The fear that his death brought to her was unforgettable. Listen clearly. According to the recent gossip, this special police department is called Jaegers. Jaegers? An organization that specializes in hunting people. This name is really arrogant. Leonette stood up and snorted. She seemed to be very dissatisfied with this death's arrogance. Dustless did not speak. He sat aside calmly, and no one knew what he was thinking. The guy Seliu Ubiquitas was killed by me. I am afraid that one of the original members is missing now. In the original work, Seliu Ubiquitas of the guards was also one of them, and she even killed Hill. But now, the development of the situation was forcefully rewritten by Dustless. This time, her luck wasn't very good. She was eliminated by Dustless in advance. On the contrary, Hill was still alive and well. All in all, everyone should be a little more careful recently. Try to avoid confronting his death head-on. I know her temperament better, so we can consume her slowly. The boss Najenda's wise order. Her bright eyes were quite far-sighted. Although this was a passive tactic, his death was like a maggot to her, and the shadow in her heart could never be removed. Boss, Bullet has fallen. Do we need to add members? Hill, who was a natural airhead, stared at Bullet's former position and couldn't help but suggest, if there is one less person, the efficiency of our task will be greatly reduced, and it will affect Ken in the future. Hill is right. It's also right to find a new person to join. After all, Bullet's position needs to be replaced by others. Now Tatsumi has the set of armor, Haunted. With his ability, it is impossible to surpass Bullet in a short time. Hey, if Bullet could hold on for a while, I could save him, Wu Chen said guiltily in a self-blaming tone. You tried your best, don't mind, Dustless. Patting Dustless's shoulder, Najenda showed a regretful and disappointed expression. If Bullet's spirit is in heaven, he will thank you. Spirit? Bullshit. You can't have it. If there is, that kid must curse me to death. Dustless smiled, but he complained in his heart. Chapter 1635. Dustless still remembered the eyes of Bullet, who died with grievances. It was better for the soul of that kind of person to dissipate. It was not a good thing to be remembered by a ghost all day long. During the time when I am away, Scarlet Pupil will temporarily act as the boss. After sorting out the package that had been prepared, Najenda was about to leave. Finally, she did not forget to ask, "Do you have any questions? During this time, don't go out at will." Boss, don't worry, we are not children. Everyone has the consciousness of being an assassin. We will not avenge Bullet temporarily. Leonie leaned lazily on the chair with a pleasant expression. At the same time, she did not forget to glance out of the window, but she found that Tatsumi, who was still training, suddenly disappeared. Where is Tatsumi? After a few seconds of hesitation, Leonie's tone increased several times. Tatsumi? These words made everyone's face change greatly. Everyone looked at the place where Tatsumi and Bullet usually trained. The scene in front of them made everyone frown deeply. They didn't know when, but the place was empty. Tatsumi disappeared. Before the first wave subsides, another wave rises. Tatsumi is probably going to avenge Bullet. Dustless explained in a very positive tone. Dustless had previously pushed all the blame of Bullet's death to Leva of the Three Beasts. And who was the boss of the Three Beasts? After General Bullet was killed, there was only one strongest sadist general left in the Empire. His death. I guess Tatsumi went to trouble his death. Scarlet Pupil's cheeks also showed a rare displeasure. Although she was quite optimistic about Tatsumi, she couldn't help but complain at the moment. Night Raid was an assassin organization. Sometimes it was inevitable that members would be killed. The members must be calm, but Tatsumi was too willful. What he did was completely opposite to the assassin's philosophy. I guessed that the kid would not be quiet. I originally planned to let you keep an eye on him. Najenda put down the package that she picked up again. She looked helpless and had a headache. Although she could understand Tatsumi's pain, as a professional assassin, she must not be controlled by her own emotions. Absolute rationality was necessary. That idiot Tatsumi, I'm afraid his death is waiting for him to take the bait. I heard that his death has recently organized a civic contest. At that time, Isdef will personally participate. It is estimated that she will use herself as bait to lure the members of the night raid. If Tatsumi is caught, we can use his mouth to get the news of our base. Touching his chin, Dustless showed a gloating smile. With him in the night attack, it would be fine. No matter what, Tatsumi the little boy was going to be unlucky. If he was caught by Isdef, he would be severely tortured. It would be best if Isdef could kill Tatsumi, who was an eyesore. I suggest we change our base immediately. Dustless was bored and knocked on the table, making the sound of dong dong. He analyzed. Everyone knows the situation of Isdef. Tatsumi may be able to defeat her in the future, but now, he is just sending himself to Isdef. And Isdef is the sadist general. She is good at torturing people. If Tatsumi is caught, who knows whether he can withstand the torture? It is necessary to change the base temporarily. Mine and Gil nodded after hearing the words. Well, let's listen to Dustless's plan and change the base temporarily. Boss Najenda continued. However, you guys go to the capital to investigate together. All members of the night raid were exposed. Remember to disguise yourselves. If Tatsumi has not implemented the revenge plan, it is best to save him. He is also a member of the night raid. We can't leave him alone. When she said this, Najenda did not have much confidence. After all, everyone knew the relationship between Bullet and Tatsumi. Tatsumi hated the culprit Isdef. Even so, but the corners of Wu Chen's mouth squirmed and he suddenly interrupted. What if Tatsumi doesn't listen? When he is stubborn, even 10 cows can't pull him back. What if the kid doesn't obey our orders? Dustless is right. I know Tatsumi's character. Lubbock also nodded. Everyone got along with each other day and night. Even if they didn't know each other's background, at least they still knew each other's character. This worry was not unreasonable. The relationship between Bullet and Tatsumi is extraordinary. Leonie sighed and followed. She suddenly felt that it was a mistake to pull the naive and optimistic Tatsumi into the night raid. If that's the case, Boss Najenda's eyes were cold and said, if that's the case, there is no way. We can only kill Tatsumi by ourselves. I hope he can understand our pain. We can't ruin the revolution because of him alone. Hee, I'm waiting for you to say that. Dustless's eyes were fierce as if he was possessed by an evil spirit. The Revolutionary Army was not something that Dustless could control. The decaying empire was not a good thing, but there must be factions within the Revolutionary Army. As a result, there must be intrigue. Then the darkness began to sprout at the same time. Anyway, I can use infinite Tsukuyomi to kill this world in the end. All human beings are my nourishment. Dustless smiled calmly. It was extremely terrifying, far more terrifying than the monsters of the Empire. Compared with Dustless, Minister Ernest was simply an angel. At the moment in the imperial capital, as Dustless and others guessed, Tatsumi arrived on time. He also knew that his identity was exposed, so he deliberately disguised himself before sneaking into the imperial capital. Chapter 1636. At the moment, in the luxurious palace of the imperial capital, in a room with an elegant environment, Isdef looked at the members of the Jaeger's police force below with satisfaction. The only regret was that the guard named Celiu Ubiquitas had been killed by Dustless. Captain, will someone really attack us in this citizens' contest? Other members of the Jaegers questioned. This person had a handsome face and short blonde hair. His name was Lon. I am not sure. Anyway, it is boring to hold a battle to pass the time. There are several Taigu. It is the right to choose the right users. Isdef shrugged her shoulders indifferently. Night raids were all famous rats, and only God knew their specific movements. However, according to my estimation, the young man named Tatsumi is a loyal person. Once there is a chance, he will never let me go. Isdef played with her nails, Her tone was very lazy, but deep in her eyes, there was a bright and strange luster. At the same time, the other members of the special police force, the hunters, also made their appearance. Bowles, Will Dr. Fashion and the rest were all there, as well as Scarlet Eye's sister, Black Pupil. The only one missing was Cyril Ubiquitas, who had been killed. Bud was too reckless. If that guy was not reckless and went to look for death to fight with Dustless, he and I may be able to defeat him together. After a while, Esteth sighed with melancholy. She also had no way to deal with Dustless. Now she could only take one step at a time. The Emperor had ordered her to arrest Dustless again and again, but Esteth did not have the ability. Even Master Esteth is not his opponent? Curome's natural expression was stunned. I have fought with him before, and the result? In short, I lost completely. Staring at Black Pupil angrily, Esteth was very depressed. You can't be so direct even if you want to expose the scars. Speaking of Wuchen, the scene of being washed by Wuchen automatically popped up in her mind. And she was extremely sad to put a collar on herself. The streets that were crowded at ordinary times were deserted at the moment. It was all thanks to Esteth. She held a citizens' contest which attracted a large number of civilians to watch. Esteth, the strongest sadist general, was still very popular. The secret night raid base in the imperial capital. I didn't expect there to be such a place. In the secret room, Dustless strolled around with great interest. The night raid logo was clearly hung on the wall, and it was very conspicuous. Leona sat on the sofa and drank beer painfully. She had forgotten about Tatsumi's mission. As for Lubbock, he observed the situation outside through the window. Where are Chi Tong and the others? Looking around, Dustless asked out of boredom. This mission was of great importance. Not only the three of them participated, but even Akame, Mine and Hill also participated. They're in charge of investigating. Leona said in an unusually lazy tone. As soon as her voice fell, Lubbock's voice sounded. Chi Tong and the others seemed to have returned. How did they gather information so quickly? There won't be any problems. Gazing far away, Chi Tong and the others were all wearing black robes. It could not be helped. Thanks to Dustless, now all the members of the night raid were almost exposed. After all, they often fought with the troops of the imperial capital. It was inevitable to be exposed. They should have found some useful information. Dustless bowed his head and said to himself. From Chi Tong's slightly worried face he could vaguely see some clues. It must be that Tatsumi had a big problem. It is estimated that Tatsumi signed up for the citizens' contest. After a while, Dustless's eyes flashed a ray of light. The final winner can get the reward of Esteth, and even test some Taigu. This is a good opportunity to get close to Esteth. If Tatsumi really wants to assassinate Esteth, then this is the best opportunity. The analysis is reasonable. After thinking carefully, Leona nodded and sighed. Tatsumi is in a hurry to die. Esteth has countless enemies. She can still be alive, which explains everything. Who knows? Maybe God will give her face, and the assassination will succeed. Wu Chen said with a faint smile. At the same time, he looked at the exit of the machine room. Chi Tong and the others had already appeared in his eyes. Tatsumi participated in the citizens' contest. Sure enough, as Dustless guessed, the news revealed by Chi Tong was the same as what Dustless predicted. This guy's head is really smart. Leona glanced at Dustless incredibly, and immediately frowned. There is news that Esteth will also observe. Tatsumi's identity is also exposed. If he is caught by Esteth, our night raid will be completely exposed. Hee. That's very simple, kill Tatsumi together. Dustless's extremely evil suggestion was surging between his eyebrows. If Tatsumi is really caught, in order to prevent him from leaking the news of our organization, then I will kill him. Mine raised the Taigu pumpkin, and was full of confidence. This world is really mysterious. Dustless saw this and smiled without a trace. Originally, in the original work, the relationship between Tatsumi and Mine developed to the later stage. They were lovers who were envied by others. Now it was good, he instigated them to become strangers. Now Mine wanted to kill Tatsumi. The development of the situation was so wonderful. Chapter 1637. Dustless stared at the impassioned mine. This guy obviously didn't say it casually. There was a touch of freedom and determination on her cheeks. If Tatsumi was caught and betrayed the night raid, he would be a real traitor. Let's disguise ourselves a little and sneak into the venue. Let's see what Tatsumi is going to do. Looking up at the distant sky in boredom, Dustless was actually full of expectations and curiosity about what Tatsumi would do. At this moment, the special venue for the citizens' martial arts competition was crowded with people. It was difficult to find a suitable place to stand. Tatsumi really knows how to make trouble for people. Also, how can I snipe Tatsumi in such a place? I can't even see the target clearly. Mine, who teamed up with Dustless, complained as she walked. Because she was small and short, she could hardly see the situation outside in the crowd. You are more troublesome than Tatsumi. Dustless suddenly hugged Mine, grabbed her right shoulder and right leg, and put Mine on his shoulder to sit. What do you want to do? Molest? Mine was shocked by Dustless's sudden move. She recovered and scolded. It turns out that you are a pervert. You are so troublesome. I am kind enough to find an open field for you, but you blame me. In this case, you can come down. Grabbing Mine's shoulder, Dustless was about to put her down, but this guy was unhappy again. Do you think you can put me down just because you said so? Do you have any respect for me? Don't move. The view here is the best. If Tatsumi dares to appear, I promise that I can kill him with one shot. Mine slapped Dustless's hand away rudely and groaned. Although you are lazy, you are very reliable at the critical moment. I will depend on you. Depend on me? Hearing the words, Wu Chen glanced at Mine, who blushed in surprise. This sentence represented a lot of meanings. He immediately joked. You don't like me, do you? Impossible. A panic flashed in Mine's eyes. She quickly denied it and said proudly, I fell in love with you when all the men in the world died. I guess you've really fallen for me. Wu Chen continued to tease. His goal was to kill all the humans and absorb their life force to reach the level of perfection. The whole world was about to be destroyed. Naturally, Dustless was the only man left. Speaking of which, you'll be easily discovered if you're so conspicuous. Mine sat on Dustless's head. Although she was disguised, her position was too conspicuous. It was difficult not to notice her. What's the matter? Mine curled her lips and asked, with an expression of disdain. What's more, even if the sky falls, you will be there to support it. It's not a big deal. You've changed from the past. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Since he joined the night raid, the style of the members of the night raid was completely different from before. Before the super fighting power of Dustless, the night raid attacked others at night. Now with the addition of Dustless, almost all of them fought with the enemy head-on. Now let's welcome the last group of contestants. The host, Will, took the microphone and announced loudly that the game had entered the end. The last two contestants stepped onto the stage under everyone's expectant gazes. One of them was tall and sturdy, like a magical beast. The other one wore a mask on his head, and his entire body was airtight. Judging from his physique, he was a teenager. Mine, pay attention to that guy. Pointing to the teenager wearing a mask, Dustless said coldly, That guy seems to be Tatsumi. Why are you so sure? Mine asked in a low voice. She tried to lower her voice, but she was still shocked. Dustless just took a few glances at him. People who have been killed by me, I naturally won't remember him. But people who have grudges with me, even if he disguised himself, even if he has undergone plastic surgery, he can't escape from my eyes. What's more, what kind of person do you think will wear a mask? Dustless asked calmly. What kind of person will wear a mask? Mine was silent for a few seconds and replied, People who have done something wrong will be ashamed. Yes, it is because they have done something wrong that they will be afraid. Tatsumi, like us, is a criminal wanted by the Empire. If he wants to participate in the game, he must change his appearance. So I am sure that this person is him, and his body outline is very similar to Tatsumi. Dustless glanced at Tatsumi. Then his right eye suddenly changed. The black eye instantly turned into a blue and white eye, Tensigen. His vision became extremely clear, The scene 10 kilometers away could be seen, not to mention Tatsumi, who was close at hand. Sure enough, it's this kid. After careful observation for more than 10 seconds, Dustless affirmed. Phew phew phew. However, as soon as Dustless's voice fell, mine shot out a ray of light. Boom boom boom. The violent explosion was not earth-shattering, but at least it scared everyone. And Dustless was the same, looking at mine stupidly. Is your head rusty? Dustless, who came back to his senses, asked loudly. You can only blame Tatsumi. You want to assassinate his death? If it's that simple, the Empire would have been destroyed. We can notice Tatsumi's disguise, his death will naturally notice it too. If Tatsumi is caught, his death will definitely torture Tatsumi severely. If he can't bear the torture, he will inevitably confess everything. It's best for me to take the opportunity to kill him now. Mine didn't stop. Instead, she fired a few more shots. Although it's a bit far-fetched, there is some truth in it. Touching his nose, Dustless found that he was convinced by mine. At the same time, Dustless also found that a large number of soldiers flocked to him and mine, including the members of Jaegers. Chapter 1638. Boom boom boom. All this happened so suddenly that everyone was caught off guard. Looking at the direction where mine was standing, they didn't expect that she would suddenly attack without saying anything. The killers of the night attack. They are looking down on people more and more. Death stared at the burning fireball in the stadium, and she was silent for a while. Then she said coldly, now the rats are fat, and they dare to compete with human beings. They are really arrogant. Jaegers, go out. Phew phew phew. As Death's voice fell, all the special police, Jaegers, were dispatched. Mine and Dustless were the first to be exposed, and they were also the first to be treated kindly by Jaegers. Are you the Dustless that is? Death said. On the surface you look good, but this is only the surface. A strange voice came. Dustless rushed to the source of the sound, and a figure with glasses invaded his pupils. Dr. Vogue? Seeing the identity of the person, Dustless just glanced at him as if nothing had happened, and said to himself in boredom, I am looked down upon. Does this Death think that you can deal with me? You won't be arrogant later. Dr. Vogue's face flashed a touch of anger, and he was irritated by Dustless's contemptuous tone. That casual appearance was not like talking to human beings at all, and the target was like an insect that was not worth mentioning. Go. With a wave of his hand, the soldiers who surrounded Dustless and mine swarmed over. Obviously, they were all controlled by Dr. Vogue, and they were all transformed people. You are just ants. His calm eyes passed over their bodies. Dustless hugged the sky with his hands, and immediately the unstoppable wave that was visible to the naked eye broke out in an instant. Shinra Tensei. Boom boom boom. The huge stadium was hit hard. Even if Dustless deliberately lowered the power, it was attacked by the repulsive force. Half of the area disappeared, and a shocking super deep pit appeared on the ground. It was like being hit by a meteorite. Gulp. Seeing such a miraculous scene, Dr. Vogue's entire body went numb. He looked at the ghastly wound on the ground and thought about his arrogant words. He regretted it. I haven't written my will yet, and I still have a bunch of human experiments to do. Keep going. Dr. Fashionista waved his hand again, and the remaining modified soldiers swarmed out again. But this time Dr. Vogue learned to be smart. The target of the attack was mine, who was relatively weak. Compared to Dustless, she was easier to deal with. Damn it, I've been underestimated. Mine felt angry when she saw this. She didn't expect that she was looked down upon, and Dr. Fashion obviously regarded her as a soft persimmon. Boom boom boom. Mine held the taigu in her hand, and a lot of lights were shot out. She immediately killed a group of miscellaneous soldiers. However, there was a saying that 2 fists were no match for 4 feet. After a stalemate for a while, mine was still surrounded, and she was very embarrassed. It's over. Dr. Fashionista laughed maniacally. Then he snapped his fingers and said loudly, Now I'll show you my highest fashion. Snap. After the sound of snapping fingers fell, the miscellaneous soldiers who were still far away from mine suddenly exploded. Boom. Although Mind defended in time to avoid the ending of being buried together with the explosion, the impact of the explosion still sent her flying mercilessly. This madman. Looking at the flame of the explosion in shock, Mind pinched her fists and looked at the miscellaneous soldiers who were approaching. There were more than a dozen of them, and she suddenly felt miserable. These minions have been transformed into human bombs. Taking a deep breath, Mind tried to stabilize herself, but her heart was still beating faster. She had seen the god of death in a trance. Disappear. Glancing at Mind, who was desperate, Dr. Fashionista snapped his fingers again. Boom boom boom. More than a dozen human bombs all exploded, and immediately set off an earth-shattering sound. The violent movement could be felt hundreds of meters away. So Mind, who was only a few meters away from the human bombs, naturally could not be spared. Hey. It's a pity. I wanted to discuss life with Dustless in detail, and let him become a member of my Fashionista army. Dr. Fashionista said to himself, looking at the rolling fire. He was sure that even his death would die. Buzz buzz buzz. At the moment of turning around, a ray of sacred golden light fell from the sky, accompanied by a voice that ignored all living things. This is... Dr. Fashionista was stunned, and his eyes stared in horror. At the place where the sound came from, a golden giant was clearly visible, and the deadly oppression instantly filled the world. A monster composed of special energy appeared in his eyes. It looked ferocious, holding a golden sword of light, despising everything. How do you feel? Patting Mind, who was helpless, Dustless asked with a smile. I said before, I am responsible for protecting the sniper, right? Mind's eyes flashed with gratitude. Dustless seemed to have saved her several times, but Mind, who was arrogant, immediately turned her head. You are doing a good job as a newcomer, a bit like a killer. This guy is really proud. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He gave Mind a supercilious look, and immediately controlled the golden mature Kinsusinu to shoot the deadly light. For a human being, it's good that you can do this. Go to hell in peace. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As the voice fell, the mature Kinsusinu's sword suddenly fell down, and an unparalleled chop broke out. Poochie. The huge golden edge annihilated everything. Even the air was cut off by it, and the space was distorted. Chapter 1639. Gulp. Dr. Vogue was stunned and stared at the roaring light. His heart was full of despair and dead silence. He regretted it for a moment. When Is Death proposed to deal with Wu Chun personally, he insisted on a one-on-one fight with Wu Chun. Now he suddenly had a feeling of crying without tears, especially when he still had a big move that had not been used yet. Staring at the edge that wanted to cut off the world, Dr. Fashion's heart was cold. Whoosh! Just when Dr. Fashion thought that he was about to die, the destructive light suddenly turned a corner and swept in other directions. Boom! No matter how big the building was, no matter how prosperous the street was, it was annihilated by this invincible blade. Everywhere it went, it was a mess, and he was in despair. What's going on? Dr. Fashion was dumbfounded. He touched his limbs that were still intact, and immediately slapped himself inexplicably. It hurts. Dr. Fashion suddenly grimaced in pain, and immediately said excitedly, Is it that Dustless still can't control this move? God is so kind that he gave me a chance to turn the tables again. You. On the other side, Mind stared at Dustless strangely, staring at his calm face, and always felt a little strange. Instead of saying that God gave Dr. Fashion face, Mind felt that Dustless was taking the initiative to let him win. I want you to die first. Glancing at Dustless fiercely, Dr. Fashion did not hesitate to insert a needle into his neck, and then injected all the mysterious liquid. Ow 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 ow. Crazy and happy laughter came out from Dr. Fashion's mouth. And then his body suddenly became bigger, with himself as the core. A behemoth was exposed to the air. You turned yourself into a dangerous species? Aware of the violent breath of Dr. Fashion, Mind's face changed slightly, and she looked at Dustless with a little worry. The height of tens of meters was a bit exaggerated, not to mention the violent dangerous species. Even a worm of tens of meters high could break mountains and rivers when it moved. Looking at Dustless, his face did not change, and his deep eyes were as silent as the Dead Sea that could never be seen through. I gave you a chance to live, and you just showed me this kind of naive thing? A slight ripple splashed in the void. A short sentence was very light, but it came into everyone's ears. You. Dr. Fashion's face showed anger. He felt that his dignity was trampled on. Looking down at Dustless, because he became tens of meters in an instant, Dustless's figure became a small black dot, as small as a thumb. Go to hell. With a crazy roar, Dr. Fashionista controlled the giant dangerous species to come crushing over. It's over. Raising his eyelids slightly, Wuchen stared at the huge body. The silent Ryatsu in his body burst out. The dangerous species that were not terrible instantly withered and dismembered, turning into a large piece of black stone falling from the sky. The 90 Black Coffin of Breaking Tao. It was just a simple sentence, but it made Dr. Vogue feel a deadly pressure. He looked up at the sky, and a sharp black luster whistled towards him. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. In just a few seconds, the dangerous species that Dr. Fashion trusted was cut into pieces, and his flesh and blood flew all over the sky. He himself also ended up like this, being cut into pieces. In the other direction, Tatsumi suffered from his death as personal destruction. Kid, is that all you have? You want to avenge others with this level? I'm laughing my head off. Looking at the miserable Tatsumi in front of her, his death was indifferent and even disappointed. She sincerely hoped that Tatsumi would be as terrible as Dustless, bringing her fatal oppression. But the result was disappointing. Tatsumi was too ordinary. Although he was somewhat amazing and haunted, the gap between him and Bullet was still too big. Did you kill my brother? Tatsumi, who was beaten to the ground, asked angrily. His eyes were red, and he was as crazy as a dying beast. So what if I did? So what if I didn't? I have killed too many people, and it's hard for me to remember the appearance of the people I have killed. Death replied casually. Unexpectedly, this sentence suddenly angered Tatsumi. Go to hell. Tatsumi heard the words, and stood up again stubbornly. He held a long spear and stabbed Death's face fiercely, trying to kill her with one blow. Compared with Dustless, you are too weak. Every move of his can give me a huge oppression. Why is the gap so big when we are in the same organization? Phew. Death sighed with boredom. She waved her hand gently, and countless ice blades came out. So many. Seeing this, Tatsumi's pupils shrank. He waved his weapon to resist at the first time. Although he broke a lot of ice, he was seriously injured because of the large number. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. There were many scars all over his body. Tatsumi's skin and flesh were broken. In the end, he couldn't bear the blow and fainted. Is he dead? Noticing that Tatsumi had no breath, Death frowned slightly. She wanted to torture Tatsumi and ask for useful information. As a member of the night raid, he must know a lot of useful information. Roland, throw this boy's body to the dogs. Remember to throw it far away. It's better to throw it out of the capital. Glancing at the blonde man beside her, Death ordered very coldly. Just use him to tell the members of the night raid that this is the future. Chapter 1640. Captain, are you sure you want to do this? Lon didn't rush to start, but asked Death strangely. He stared at Tatsumi's body for a long time. He was keenly aware that something was wrong. He didn't believe that Death didn't see the clues. The most powerful sadist general killed people, and she should know the difference between the dead and the living. So that's the case. Is that the reason? This strongest sadist general is indeed not an ordinary person. She is powerful and unparalleled in intelligence. After a long silence, Lan's eyes lit up, and he vaguely understood Death's intention. That group of abominable night raid should end up like this. Throw them to the dogs. Death responded without emotion, then glanced at Tatsumi's body a few times, and then left without any reluctance. Leave this matter to me. Lon left with Tatsumi's body. Two white wings swept out behind him, and then he rose into the air. Death was the boss of Jaegers, and her orders must be carried out. Damn, is Tatsumi dead? The members of the night raid saw Lon leaving with Tatsumi, and they all showed a complicated expression. Anyway, they were also companions, and they felt sad. They saw that Tatsumi's body was full of bloody scars, and his expression was stiff, and he couldn't be more dead. Something is wrong. Although he was seriously injured, he is still safe and sound, and his heart is still beating. It is reasonable to say that Tatsumi should not be dead. His death should be able to see this kind of thing. Staring at Tatsumi, through the special vision of Rinnegan, Lan's every move could not escape the eyes of Dustless. This little trick could deceive others, but it was too difficult to deceive Dustless, who had Rinnegan. In particular, Tensigen could even capture Tatsumi's beating heart. Does it mean Death did it on purpose? His face changed slightly, and after thinking for a long time, Dustless's face showed an imperceptible smile, and he also understood her intention. In the evening, in the palace of the imperial capital, after abandoning Tatsumi, the members of Jaegers gathered again. The only difference was the lack of Dr. Fashion. Is Fashion dead? I have long advised him not to provoke Dustless, and the result is the same as I expected. Death's tone was full of melancholy. Not to mention Dr. Fashion, even she was not enough in the past. The members of the Jaegers were collectively silent for a few minutes. It could be considered as a moment of silence for the deceased Dr. Fashion. Captain. After a while, Lan looked at Death and saw that she was calm. She couldn't help but ask about her doubts during the day. Tatsumi should not be dead. I can feel his body temperature. Although those wounds are serious, they deliberately avoid the vital parts. Did you do it deliberately? Oh, can you tell? Death shook the goblet in her hand, and the blood-red liquid swayed. Death said her purpose. You're right, Lan, but I deliberately let Tatsumi go. Captain, what's your plan? After being stunned for a moment, all the members asked expectantly. Death obviously did it on purpose, which also showed that she had other plans. The boy was seriously injured by me. If he wants to live, he can only return to the night raid. With a raging smile, Death held her chin with her left hand and said meaningfully, I have sent someone to follow the boy. It's only a matter of time before we find the base of the night raid. Captain deliberately let Tatsumi go. Are you planning to break the base of the night raid? Kiron blinked and asked, and also understood the real plan of his death. They couldn't find the base of the night raid before. It would be best if Tatsumi took the initiative to lead the way. In this way, we can launch a sneak attack at night. Bull's eyes were bright, and he agreed with Death's plan. In the past, they used to launch sneak attacks on the Jaegers at night. This time, it was the Jaegers' turn to launch a sneak attack at night. Yes, for a long time, we have been in the light, and the night raid has been in the dark. The initiative of the battlefield is in their hands. The Jaegers are too passive. This time, it must be our turn to take the initiative. We can turn the disadvantages into advantages, especially when the people of the night raid sneak attack us. This time, it's our turn to launch a sneak attack on the Dustless people. Death's analysis was very comprehensive, and this was her plan. Since the two sides couldn't defeat the night raid in a head-on confrontation, they could only apply what they learned. They used the strategy before the night raid. Sneak attack. The value of Tatsumi is limited. We must maximize the use of this boy so that we won't let down the dead Fashion. Well, the task of monitoring Tatsumi is handed over to you. The Jaegers lost a member in the first battle, and Death was somewhat frustrated. At night, Tatsumi, who was abandoned in the wilderness, opened his eyes again and looked at the dark sky. The beautiful starlight was in his eyes. Tatsumi's face flashed a touch of nostalgia. It's good to be alive. After experiencing a crisis of death, Tatsumi felt the preciousness of life. I didn't expect that my ability to pretend to be dead could deceive Death. Tatsumi was complacent. At that time, he realized the gap between him and Death. Tatsumi knew that there was no hope for the reward. As a result, he pretended to be dead. He thought that he would be seen through by Death. Unexpectedly, it was unexpectedly smooth. It hurts. After moving his body a little, the tingling suddenly spread all over his body. Tatsumi grimaced in pain, but he could only drag his tired body to find the base of the night raid again. A pair of green eyes had been staring at Tatsumi's movements. When Tatsumi left, it also followed. Chapter 1641. The Base of the Night Raid. It was late at night, but everyone did not sleep. After the battle with the Hunter Special Police, everyone had many knots in their hearts that had not been untied, and they were quite nervous. However, at the moment, everyone's eyes were fixed on Tatsumi's head. You can escape from the hands of his death? Looking at the bloody Tatsumi, Lubbock took the lead to question, and he was deeply puzzled that Tatsumi came back alive. After all, the opponent was his death. Although the other members of the night raid did not speak, they were puzzled. They even prepared for Tatsumi's funeral. Now this guy suddenly came back alive. They were really shocked. What's with your eyes? Are you sad that I didn't die? Tatsumi was out of breath when he saw the changes in everyone's expression. He was secretly angry. This group of heartless guys saw that he came back alive, and they all showed a disappointed expression. It seemed that they were very upset that he didn't die. If you want to blame yourself. You want to challenge his death. This is like hitting a stone with an egg. Even if you really die, it's the result of your own actions. I will never be sad. Mine turned her head proudly and didn't even look at Tatsumi. You. Tatsumi was speechless, and he immediately quibbled with a red face. I was testing the strength of his death to prepare for everyone to counterattack the capital in the future. You saw the strength of his death during the day. You have to thank me. When did this kid become so shameless? Dustless looked at Tatsumi with a funny look and ridiculed. Are you sure you are testing his death? Aren't you being beaten by his death as a sandbag? You guys stop before it's too much. Now show the expression of welcoming the return of the hero. Also, please immediately put away this expression of encountering a jinx. Immediately. Tatsumi's internal organs jumped fiercely. He wanted to cry but had no tears. For Dustless and others' shameful behavior, he was also helpless. After all, they were the mouths of others. By the way, it's too strange. Isdef is the strongest general. She has experienced countless battles. She is a strong person who climbed out of the pile of dead people. How could such a person not be able to differentiate between the living and the dead? Akame expressed the doubts in her heart and glanced at Tatsumi's embarrassed face. She didn't want to hurt everyone's harmony, so she quickly explained, I just expressed the doubts in my heart. There is no other meaning. That's simple. Dustless sat on the sofa, looked at the night sky lazily and said casually, Isdef deliberately let Tatsumi come back. That guy has been looking for the base of the night attack. Tatsumi is a suitable leader. Impossible. Tatsumi immediately denied and said loudly, You think too highly of his death. She is not as terrible as you think. After all, she is just a woman. Although she is stronger than me now, give me a year or two, I can definitely surpass her. Just a woman? Sometimes women are more troublesome than men. Dustless scoffed at Tatsumi's words. This guy hadn't figured out why he could come back. Maybe he thought it was because he was too smart. Tatsumi, although I don't want to hurt you, it's strange that you can come back alive. My opinion is the same as Dustless. I think his death deliberately let you go. That woman is terrible. Leonie frowned. She was once responsible for monitoring his death, and had the naive idea of assassinating his death, but the beast's instinctive perception of danger made her stop and give up the unrealistic plan. Even Sister Leonie doesn't think highly of me. Tatsumi's heart was cold. He looked around at the members of the night attack, and found that unconsciously, he had become the target of public criticism. Everyone was not interested in him. But, Tatsumi's mouth squirmed, and when he was about to explain, the earth-shattering sound of the cannon resounded through the dark night sky. Boom boom boom. The quiet night was like a sudden earthquake. The earth shook, the mountains were torn apart. A large number of mountain fragments peeled off, and even the base of the night attack was hit hard. This wave of roar fell, and the base turned into nothingness in an instant. Not good. All the enchantments I set have been touched. It is estimated that everyone has been surrounded, and there are a lot of people who have admitted defeat. There are thousands of people. Lubbock broke into a cold sweat. There were too many people, and obviously they were prepared before. All the members of the night attack were depressed when they heard the words. They looked at the petrified Tatsumi at the same time. Their resentful eyes were obviously saying that he was indeed a jinx. Cough, cough, cough. Everyone should join forces to fight against the enemy. At this point, Tatsumi also knew that he had made a big trouble. He quickly encouraged them in an impassioned tone. 1. Don't give up easily. Concentrate all your strength to break through in one place. You can definitely escape. Right, Dustless? Tatsumi glanced at Dustless and decisively kicked the ball to him. Break through? Why do we have to break through? His expression did not change as he looked down at the approaching figures in the distance. It was a large black mass, and all of them were the Empire's troops. Since they are here, just annihilate them all. Tilting his head, Dustless said as if nothing had happened. His light tone made people feel speechless. It gave people the feeling that it was as simple as eating and drinking water. Annihilate them all? Is there something wrong with my ears? Leonette rolled her eyes at Dustless and complained. You have to understand that those are the elite soldiers under his death, not the decadent Empire soldiers. Although they are all from the same country, their combat power is very different. It doesn't matter. Dustless heard the words and waved his hand. He smiled and said, In fact, I found out that his death deliberately let Tatsumi come back, and I have already thought about how to deal with that guy. Chapter 1642. What's the plan? The members of the night raid were all eager, and their expectant eyes were fixed on Dustless, and they could no longer move away. Hey, this guy shouldn't be an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years, right? Tatsumi was jealous, but after thinking about it, he kept silent. He had to admit that compared with them, Dustless was more knowledgeable. Although he looked like he was 18 or 19 years old, his life experience was extremely rich. Wait! At this moment, Tatsumi suddenly thought of something and asked angrily, Since you know that I'm not dead, why don't you rescue me? What if I'm killed? Is there a teammate like you? Sorry, my memory is not very good. I forgot for a while. Shrugging his shoulders, Dustless showed an innocent expression, which made Tatsumi angry. Let's put that kind of little thing aside for a while. How are you going to solve the problem? The night raid members interrupted and asked. They were not interested in Tatsumi's affairs. This kid was a jinx. His death brought a large number of soldiers, then. The corners of Wu Chen's mouth curled into an arc as if his scheme had succeeded. He said coldly, There's no doubt that these soldiers are used to defend the imperial capital. Now that she has mobilized them, it means that the imperial capital's defenses are very weak. We can take this opportunity to launch a sneak attack on the imperial capital. It's indeed a good opportunity to attack the imperial capital. Everyone was stunned, and their eyes were shining. Isdeth and her hunters came with a large number of soldiers, so the imperial capital's internal defense must be unusually empty. As for General Budo, he was killed by Dustless a long time ago. It's easy to say. Tatsumi snorted and said impolitely, I advise you not to dream. Now we are surrounded by Isdeth. How can we attack the imperial capital? By flying. That's right. A group of night raid members showed a disappointed expression. Although it was suitable to attack the imperial capital, it was annoying that they were surrounded by Isdeth's army. They couldn't escape even if they had wings. How could they attack the imperial capital? Don't worry about that. Dustless smiled mysteriously and confidently. You didn't forget the battle during the day, did you? When I left the warlock of Flying Thunder God in the capital. Flying Thunder God warlock? The members of the night raid all revealed puzzled expressions. Their expressions were rather complicated. In front of Dustless, they were like children who had never seen the world. They simply could not understand what Dustless was talking about. Flying Thunder God warlock? What was that? Don't tell me you can teleport us to the imperial capital in an instant. That kind of thing does not exist, and there is no such Taigu. Tatsumi muttered with an expression that said, Don't try to fool everyone. You're really smart. Dustless stared at Tatsumi in astonishment and gave him a thumbs up. TSK Tatsumi, your IQ has increased once. You really guessed it this time. To some extent, the flying thunder god skill can be used for space transfer. Can you really do that kind of thing? A group of members of the night raid were shocked by Dustless. They stared at Dustless with dry mouths and tongues. If they could do it, they could take this opportunity to attack the imperial capital, and the result would be very rich. Everyone's hands are held together. Dustless did not say much, but asked everyone to hold hands. Only Tatsumi stared at Dustless with his round eyes. He wanted to see what he would do. If you like to be abused by his death so much, you can continue to wait. Staring at Tatsumi, who was indifferent, Dustless said casually, Ace. Des. These two words seemed to contain a curse. Tatsumi's body twitched a few times, and immediately his face was full of coldness. He quickly pulled Rabik's right hand. So let's start. Seeing that everyone was holding hands, the chakra in Dustless's body erupted. Just a thought, the world in front of everyone changed. Kacha. The void in front of them was distorted and shattered like a mirror. Then Dustless and others were sucked into this space. It's so bright. Suddenly, a large white light swept in front of them. The members of the night raid subconsciously closed their eyes. The dazzling light was close to the scorching sun. After a while, when everyone opened their eyes again, the world in front of them was no longer the night raid base that was bombarded, but is God's blessing, which God Dustless believes in is so merciful. He can also fulfill other people's wishes. I also want to be his believer. Looking around the environment, Tatsumi said something ridiculous. The surrounding situation was completely different from before. It was also a ruin. Looking around, it was the competition venue where they fought with this death as Jaegers before. There was no doubt that they were definitely in the imperial capital at this moment. Long story short, now I order everyone to attack the palace immediately as the acting boss and try to kill Minister Onesta. Akame didn't care about the shock and quickly ordered everyone to attack the palace. And at this moment in another direction, Is Death was very depressed, looking at the night raid base that was reduced to ruins. After waiting for a long time, she didn't see any counterattack from the night raid. They were all dead as if they were bombarded to death by artillery. It seems that something is wrong. You guys go in and search. A few minutes later, Is Death found that the situation was a bit abnormal. She ordered to stop the bombardment and sent the Jaegers to explore the ruins of the night raid base. About half an hour later, she got an answer that made her restless. Chapter 1643. What, they all ran away? Hearing the report of several members of the Jaegers, Is Death only felt that the world in front of her eyes was dark, and her confidence collapsed instantly. Her cold eyes suddenly fell on Will's head. Don't look at me. Finding that Is Death looked at him like a hungry wolf, Will wanted to cry but had no tears, so he had to bite the bullet. I really saw Tatsumi running here at that time, and I can be sure that this is the base of the night raid. Although the bombardment just now has raised their base to the ground, we can still see some clues from the ruins. There is no doubt that this is the base of the night raid. But where are the people? Is Death's words hit the nail on the head, making Will speechless. That, Mrs. Death, the people of the night raid, may have run away in advance. Shrinking his neck, Will stared at Is Death with some fear. Boom boom boom. Is Death's body burst out a powerful ice ripple, and the ground around her condensed a layer of solid ice in an instant, and the temperature suddenly dropped below zero. So strong. The members of the Jaegers were all horrified, and their knees were involuntarily bent. They were overwhelmed by Is Death's strong breath, and they were in danger of suffocation at any time. Looking at the whole world, only Dustless could suppress her now. For others, Is Death was the real god. Will, I mobilized a lot of people, but you finally told me that they ran away. Is Death's tone was as cold as a knife, and Will was stung all over. Damn Tatsumi. Will was terrified, and he cursed Tatsumi, who dug a hole millions of times in his heart. He gritted his teeth and replied, Mrs. Death, this has nothing to do with me, I will just, shut up. She shouted at Will, and the raging in Is Death's eyes could not be concealed. But after a few seconds, she finally loosened her clenched fists. She knew that the more strange the situation was, the more she had to keep calm. Where do you think Dustless went? Death asked in a low voice, but in fact, she already had the answer in her heart. Probably in the imperial capital. The members of the night raid looked at each other and said at the same time. The night raid had only one goal from the beginning to the end, to overthrow the decadent empire. It's the same as I imagined, hateful. I've been completely tricked. Death gritted her teeth. Unconsciously, she was tricked by Dustless once, and her carefully prepared plan was completely aborted. Speed up and return to the imperial capital. With a sigh of disappointment, Death had thought of the tragedy of the imperial capital. If it was in normal times, there were still soldiers guarding the imperial capital. But at this moment, she brought out a large number of elite soldiers, and the imperial capital was in danger. At this moment, inside the imperial palace, boom boom boom, sharp explosions rang out incessantly, filling the vast sky. The usually sacred palace was now ablaze with flames, and a large number of soldiers fell into pools of blood. Those guys are really ruthless. Dustless lazily wandered back and forth in the imperial palace. After thinking for quite a while, he still couldn't find the trace of that damned minister and the young emperor. Given the temperament of Minister Ernest, they might have long escaped with the emperor. At the same time, in a very special room. Is this Taigu? Staring at the weapons of various strange monsters in the house, Dustless's mind waned. After a few glances, he turned his head and left. Taigu was useless. Dustless? Did you find Minister Ornestu? As soon as he walked out of the room full of Taigu, Akame and others swarmed in. When they saw the Taigu in the room, they were very excited. Dustless could reach the state of indifference, but others were all robbers and all the Taigu were robbed. They are not in the imperial palace. Dustless heard the words and shook his head gently, indicating that Akame and others did not need to waste their efforts. I'm afraid that they have already died. Just now, I received accurate information from a few guards. Minister Ernest and his son Sheila have mysteriously disappeared with the emperor. Her eyes were dim. Akame was very disappointed. It was a rare good opportunity, but Ernest ran away. Shira? Thinking about this character carefully, Dustless suddenly waved his hand and said, Don't look for him, I know that Shira. Although this kid's strength is not worth mentioning, his ability is not bad. I remember that he can teleport people to other places. And, looking around, Dustless whispered, We have been completely surrounded, and we have no time to chase the emperor. Minister Ernest and his perverted son are really troublesome. When they looked around, they would be surprised to find that there were a large number of dangerous species in the ruins of the imperial palace. Ouch! These monsters made a sharp roar, and disgusting saliva fell from their mouths. Their bodies were ferocious and strong, and their appearance was similar to that of humans. And there were more than one or two of them. Looking around, there were more than hundreds of dangerous species. These dangerous species are a bit strange. Akame and other members of the night raid frowned. It was the first time to find dangerous species whose appearance and body were similar to that of humans. It was a fantastic story. They are actually all human beings, and they are all the research objects of Dr. Fashion. Their appearance is all because of Dr. Fashion. The people who released them are probably the minister and his son, and they want to destroy us with this. Dustless gently explained, if these dangerous species ran to the street to make trouble, maybe they could destroy the entire imperial capital. That damned father and son have been caught by me, and I must tear them into pieces. Leonai was furious. The bones in her hands were cracking, and she looked like she hated evil, as if she could not wait to tear the disgusting father and son apart their bones. Among the members of the night raid, only Dustless could remain calm. After all, he had experienced too many things. Not to mention such a small matter. He had even seen people who were crazier than Minister Ernest. Chapter 1644. Although they were killers, in the final analysis, the essence of human beings had not changed. Ow, 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 ow. The heart-wrenching screams came into the ears. Looking closely, these dangerous humanoid species were like wild cats that smelled blood, rushing to be the first to come. Yasakani no Magatama. Hordes of destructive radiance whizzed out, shattering those who had overestimated themselves. The ferocious light bullets pierced through all of these humanoid dangerous species. He was beaten so badly that he looked like a sieve. Clang 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 clang. The other idioms of the night attack did not talk nonsense. Those who should pull out the sword pulled out the sword, and those who should use the knife went on the knife. The dangerous species had a great deterrent to ordinary humans, and the night attack had little effect on them. Time flew by, and in a blink of an eye, 4 or 5 hours had passed. When Death rushed back to the imperial capital with a group of people, the scene of the palace was terrible. Are the emperor and minister Ernest dead? Looking at the burning palace in front of her, Death asked calmly without changing her expression. This? The members of the Jaeger Special Police looked at each other, and they did not know how to answer. Of course not dead. At this moment, the ground suddenly swept a purple light, and a glowing Tai Chi diagram emerged. Minister Ernest and his son Shira, including the young emperor, came into view. Minister Ernest, who had just escaped from death, saw the ruined palace and yelled, "Generalist Death, your performance is disappointing. You are 100% sure that you can defeat the night attack, so I allowed you to take away the troops guarding the imperial capital. Now the imperial capital was attacked by the night attack, and the palace has completely collapsed. You have to take full responsibility for this. The minister is right, I was almost killed by you. If it weren't for the minister's son's help, what you see may be a headless corpse." The emperor also followed Minister Ernest's words. Your Majesty has allowed me to form a special force to deal with the night attack." The dark-skinned young man standing on the left side of the emperor laughed twice and immediately raised his arm. "Generalist Death, my name is Shira, and we will be colleagues from now on." Death just snorted and refused to shake hands with Sheila. At the same time, she finally understood why General Budo hated this pair of teachers so much. At the same time, in another direction, Dustless and the others had already returned to their original base. The scene that greeted them was too horrible to look at. The base that they had raided during the night had been completely reduced to ruins that no one cared about. "In the future, I'll have to live in the open." Lubbock sighed and leaned against the big tree. He hated his death in his heart. All in all, this place is not suitable for a base. I'm afraid that after his death knew that she was fooled, she will come here again after a while. Let's change to another place. Dustless knew his death's temperament quite well. He knew her very well. Where is mine? Chi Tong's eyes swept around and frowned. It seemed that from the beginning, mine suddenly disappeared like evaporating from the world. When Dustless heard the words and was about to use observation hockey to search for mine, the embarrassed voice came out from the dense forest behind him. "Cough. I'm here. Sorry, my stomach suddenly felt uncomfortable. I just went to solve it." Mine carried Nangong Taigu and ran out of the forest. Her tone was very embarrassed. "Your stomach felt uncomfortable?" Dustless heard the words and carefully examined mine for a moment. He immediately said softly without changing his expression, "It's really rare. I remember that you didn't eat for half a day. How can you feel uncomfortable?" "Yeah." Chitong also looked at mine strangely. "This?" Mine's face was unnatural, and she immediately said to Dustless angrily, "You even doubt this kind of thing. Do you want me to take you to solve it personally?" Quietly staring at mine for a long time, Dustless said faintly, "Forget it, I'm not so bored. Not everyone likes to tease people like you." After the voice fell, Dustless stared at mine with deep meaning. There was a different meaning in the depths of his eyes. It was very different from the way he looked at mine at ordinary times. The base was destroyed. "Let's eat some fruits." She took out a few wild fruits. Mine smiled and said, "I have all washed them." Other members of the night raid did not refuse when they heard the words. They took the tempting fruits and began to eat. Hoo-hoo-hoo. About half an hour later, everyone fell to the ground inexplicably and fell asleep. A group of idiots. If you are so careless, you will be annihilated sooner or later. At this time mine. No, it was not mine anymore. The original mine changed into a woman with a more plump body. What came into view was a long-haired beautiful girl wearing headphones, wearing a British-style uniform, with a helpless melancholy smile on her face and candy in her mouth. She looked like a greedy cat. This person was Chelsea, who disguised as mine. Annihilated? Don't talk big there. A plain voice came. Dustless, who was also sleeping, suddenly stood up. Your ability is good. You can disguise as mine, and the appearance is exactly the same. To be honest, I was really surprised. However, there are too many loopholes in your disguise of mine. You didn't faint? Did you pretend deliberately? Chelsea was shocked after being stunned. At the same time, Dustless's sudden move shocked her. Chapter 1645. Swish, swish, swish. The light flashed. Dustless's body gradually lost its texture and disappeared without a sign. It was difficult for the naked eye to keep up with the moving speed. When he appeared again, Dustless had already appeared in front of Chelsea, and he also held a dagger with cold light. The blade was as cold as snow under the moonlight, and he pointed at Chelsea's throat mercilessly. What do you want to do? Chelsea's eyes flashed with panic, and she could not help but step back a few steps. Her eyes were a little scared. When she assassinated others before, this situation had never happened. I have no malice. Throwing the dagger aside, Dustless looked up at the depth of the void and calmly said, I just want to remind you that everyone is different. You have too many flaws. If you are so careless, you may die. In the original book, Chelsea was killed by Kurome because she was careless and treated Kurome as an ordinary person. The ending was even more tragic. She was killed and she didn't even have a whole body. You're quite observant, aren't you? You can even see through my flaws. Chelsea noticed that Dustless was not hostile, and her perturbed heart finally calmed down. She immediately showed a doubtful expression. You seem to have recognized that I am not mine early. Of course, although your Taigu ability is good, you can only disguise as a person's basic appearance. It is impossible to imitate mine's temperament, the tone of speaking, including the style of the office. Dustless explained patiently. Mine will not be as gentle as you. She is very proud. Although you can pretend to be mine, you are just a walking dead with no charm. It seems to be reasonable. Chelsea nodded thoughtfully after hearing the words, but she did not know mine very well, so she was full of flaws and was seen through by Dustless. I will not let you see through it next time. Chelsea looked at Dustless's eyes that seemed to know everything, and she was quite jealous. She swore that she would teach Dustless a lesson next time. Chelsea, how do you feel? Night raids aren't as bad as you think. Although they are young, they have carried out countless missions. My subordinates are very outstanding. The familiar and proud laughter came from the dark forest. Turning around, it was the boss Najenda. I reluctantly approved of him. Chelsea pointed at Dustless and then looked around, taking in the sleeping people of the night raid. She shook her head and denied. As for them, they are still a little immature as assassins. Damn it, you actually dared to disguise yourself as Dustless to trick me. Behind the boss Najenda, mine, whose face was red, stomped her feet angrily. She was so angry that she wanted to beat Chelsea up. If Najenda was not present, perhaps mine's pumpkin would have aimed at Chelsea. These two fellows are indeed natural enemies. Dustless's face was indescribably strange when he heard the words. He looked at Chelsea with some confusion. He did not expect that she could disguise herself as him, and looking at the current situation, it seemed that she also succeeded in fooling mine once. Era. You don't need to care about that kind of little thing. You can rest assured that I will keep it secret for you. Dustless gave a malicious look to mine, and then Chelsea glanced at Dustless without changing her expression. Then she smiled at mine meaningfully. These two people are really boring. They involve me for no reason. Looking at mine's angry expression and Chelsea's proud look, Dustless knew that he was innocent. Dustless could not say much about this. He did not like to meddle in other people's business. He just looked at the taiga behind Najenda lazily. Sisanu. It seems that there is no special place. After peeking a few times, Dustless immediately labeled him as an ordinary person. Don't you want to know what I did in disguise as you? Noticing that Dustless had nothing to do, Chelsea's action showed that she approached him. You. Dustless glanced at the girl with a very strange look. He knew that the character of this girl was extremely evil. He was speechless suddenly. You wouldn't use my appearance to peep at mine going to the toilet, right? After the voice fell, Dustless stared at Chelsea intently. He thought that this girl would simply deny it. Unexpectedly, she just smiled ambiguously and said, "You are really smart. You deserve to be recognized by me. The answer is very close." Fuck. Dustless's expression twitched when he heard the words. He could finally understand the reason why mine and Chelsea often quarreled with each other. It was really miserable to have such a weird teammate. It was okay to trap the enemy, but it was really too bad to pretend to trap the enemy. You seem to be in big trouble. Najenda looked at the ruins of the night raid base and frowned. The air was still filled with the thick smell of gunpowder that had not yet dissipated. Looking at the scorched earth around, it was obviously the tragedy caused by the bombardment of firearms such as cannons, and the range was still extremely vast. Najenda had vaguely guessed what had happened. Was the base invaded? Death can actually find here. She is really capable. Taking a smoke, Najenda looked dignified. Even if he had overestimated her ability, now according to this situation, it seemed that he still underestimated Death's ability. This has nothing to do with Death. It was our own people who led her here. Dustless smiled and looked at Tatsumi, who was sleeping. Not only him, but everyone was sleeping. The fruit that Chelsea had just sent was filled with sleeping pills and other drugs. Everyone was sleeping soundly. Taking advantage of such a good opportunity, Dustless added oil and vinegar to Tatsumi's fire. Najenda was furious after hearing this. Regardless of what happened, she ordered Susanoo to build a confinement room and locked Tatsumi up for 3 days. She also cut off his water and food supply. Tatsumi was completely cheated. Chapter 1646. 5 days later. Tatsumi, who was confined, secretly scolded his bad luck. He was inexplicably taken to confinement by the boss. Even there was no basic reason to persuade him. Tatsumi was exhausted when he thought about it, and he was full of hesitation about his future life. On the day when he was out of the confinement room, he saw Dustless's wicked smile. Tatsumi knew that the culprit who framed him was probably Dustless. Forget it. Unlike the past, Tatsumi was relieved this time. Being sick for a long time, he was often framed by Dustless. Tatsumi had been immune to it. After his ability to resist attacks became stronger, he didn't care about it. On the contrary, Dustless was depressed. After all, when he was bored, he usually framed Tatsumi to pass the time. Now this kid was abused by himself every day. He actually trained a steel body, and his ability to resist attacks reached the peak. Dustless was somewhat surprised. In fact, it was worth mentioning that Susanoo just integrated into the night raid. He hooked up with Tatsumi. The relationship between the two people heated up quickly, almost like that of Bullet. Susanoo also very generously agreed to train him by Tatsumi. Tatsumi did not continue to bicker with Dustless, but ran to train silently. At this moment, in the conference room that was usually used for meetings, the smoke was lingering, the scene was slightly serious. Najenda meticulously stared at the information of the past few days. She was silent for a long time, then she slowly said, "Sheila, the son of Minister Ernest? If this kid didn't make trouble, the minister and the emperor would be dead. It's a pity, it seems that he is also a difficult person." Dustless and others were silent. Although Sheila had no ability and his strength was general, his Taigu Shangri-La Dimensional Square was a good ability. Its attack power was not strong, but it belonged to the rare Taigu of the Space series. Its ability to escape was absolutely unparalleled in the world. The boss Najenda then continued. The two scumbags released the experimental body of Dr. Vogue. Now the dangerous species in human form are destroying everywhere. Our next task is to eliminate these dangerous species. Isn't there Isdetha's hunter? Dustless asked first. This was Isdetha's accusation. What did it have to do with the killers? He always felt that Najenda was too nosy. You may not know, but Isdeth has been dismissed. With a satisfied and cheerful smile on her face, Najenda said something surprising. The incident a few days ago. You made too much trouble, burning the palace, so that the ministers and the emperor were dissatisfied with his death. Now his death has been removed from her position, not to mention, her hunter has also been neglected. No wonder the boss wants to deal with those dangerous species. It's impossible to count on the imperial capital to deal with them. It's already a blessing if they don't release those dangerous species from the Fashion Research Institute. Dustless heard the words and immediately frowned. However, removing the position of his death can't solve anything. According to her nature, she will continue to lead the hunter, to fight against us. By the way, since his death has been removed, who is responsible for the defense of the imperial capital now? At present, the task of guarding the imperial capital is taken by Sheila, the biological son of Minister Onesta. He replaced the original position of his death. Now he is responsible for all the defense of the imperial capital. Najenda spat out the smoke, and her expression was a little relaxed. Compared with his death, Sheila was also very troublesome, but compared with his death he was insignificant. This was also a blessing in the misfortune. His death caused the imperial capital to be breached, and the morale of the imperial soldiers was deeply affected. During this time, many soldiers surrendered directly, and many people surrendered to the Revolutionary Army. All aspects of the border have made breakthroughs in close combat, and the final battle with the Empire is close at hand. Najenda shouted with her arms raised, as if she was injected with chicken blood. Ow, 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 ow. The sharp roar of the beast suddenly came from a distance. Dustless and others rushed out of the window. A large number of various beasts and dangerous species were screaming to the sky. In order to avoid the entanglement of the hunter, the boss Najenda decided to take a risk and placed the new base of the night raid in the Valley of the Wilderness. There were few people here, and there were dangerous species running rampant. It was the best choice for the base. Tatsumi and Susanoo seemed to be training. How did they let this group of dangerous species run over? Akame asked with a puzzled face. It is indeed a bit strange. With the strength of Susang, it is enough to easily solve these invading dangerous species. Leonette was also talking to herself blankly. This is very simple. Dustless spread his hands out and said scornfully. Such childish behavior, you all still can't tell? This is obviously intentional. Probably Susanoo wants us to see the strength of Tatsumi. He is asked to train like a devil every day, and his strength is estimated to have improved a lot. It's not as ridiculous as you said. Chelsea had candy in her mouth, and she also felt that this approach was very naive. If she wanted to show her ability, she could show her strength in the mission. There was no need to be so troublesome. Hee hee, Dustless smiled disapprovingly and said with great certainty. If I didn't guess wrong, the savior Tatsumi will soon appear and crush these insects. If you don't believe it, open your eyes and see clearly. Ow, 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 ow. After a while, Tatsumi wearing haunted fell from the sky, like a god of war blocking in front of a group of various beasts. Am I right? Dustless winked at Akame and others, and he looked very arrogant. Chapter 1647. The members of the night raid were not surprised by Dustless's prediction. This kind of thing happened a lot. Predicting the future is one of the many abilities of Dustless, and it is an extremely accurate one. There are few deviations. Shoo shoo shoo. The next scene was exactly the same as Dustless's guess. Tatsumi was like a wolf in a flock of sheep. After Susanoo's training, and because he was often destroyed, he was now much stronger than Tatsumi in the original work. After all, there was no Dustless in the original work, and now the world was chaotic because of the appearance of Dustless. Tatsumi was often ridiculed as weak as a chicken, so this guy worked very hard to improve his strength. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. After a while, the situation was one-sided. The beasts were slaughtered by Tatsumi. The scene was quite shocking, and the corpses were almost piled up like a mountain. Tatsumi has become a lot stronger. Leonie drank a big mouthful of beer happily. After the carving of Bulet and Susanoo, Tatsumi was the opposite of the young boy at the beginning. Others nodded slightly, And Dustless was not interested in other people who reluctantly recognized Tatsumi's strength. Boring. Lying lazily on the table, in Dustless's view, Tatsumi's only advantage was his ability to resist attacks, and Susanoo was better than him at washing and cooking. Tatsumi is at least your companion. You should be more optimistic. Perceiving Dustless's dispirited look, Chelsea was speechless. My impression of Tatsumi has changed slightly. He is not bad, at least in terms of strength he seems quite reliable now. Do you think he is reliable? Dustless heard the words and snorted contemptuously. That kid, I can slap him until he can't tell the east from the west. Boom. At the same time, Tatsumi suddenly broke the door and stared at Wu-chin fiercely. I heard what you said just now. You want to kill me with one slap? I don't accept it. This guy. Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Chelsea subconsciously. He saw that there was an unconcealable arc on this fellow's lips. She was extremely cunning and sinister. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Dustless whispered into Chelsea's ear. Chelsea immediately shook her head and denied it. No matter what, we are companions. Why would I cheat my teammates? I'm not you. Chelsea shrugged with an expression that said it had nothing to do with me. This guy. Dustless blinked. He could tell that Chelsea had done it on purpose. I can slap you away, no. I can slap you away with one finger. What's wrong with that? Witnessing the valiant Tatsumi, Dustless asked plainly after drinking a glass of water. If you have the guts, let's fight one-on-one. Tatsumi snorted. Although he did not think that he was Dustless's opponent, it was not as exaggerated as what Dustless said. He would not be casually slapped by a finger. Challenge me? Your wings have hardened. Wu-chin realized that he seemed to have underestimated Tatsumi. This guy didn't even dare to challenge him. Usually when he bumped into Tatsumi he would avoid him. Since you want to test your strength, I have no problem with it. You can ask the boss. She is weak and allows us to have a private duel. I don't care. Dustless closed his eyes and said comfortably. Boss. Tatsumi immediately looked at an agenda with a hint of help. It doesn't matter if we have a duel, but we must stop. The boss unexpectedly agreed to Tatsumi's condition. Strange. The members of the night raid looked at each other. Usually, the boss had always strictly prohibited this kind of thing. After all, it was a duel. It also meant that there was a winner and a loser. As a result, it may hurt the trust between the members. Tatsumi is an exception. Najenda smiled and said nothing. The more oppressive Tatsumi was, the greater the room for improvement. It was best to let Dustless destroy Tatsumi. In the open space outside the base, Dustless and Tatsumi were 15 meters apart. Remember, stop. The boss Najenda took a deep breath and immediately shouted, Start now. Finally, I can have a fair duel with this guy. Looking at Dustless, Tatsumi, who was wearing the haunted armor, was very excited. On this day he had been dreaming for a long time. Tatsumi then took a deep breath and suddenly disappeared. Tatsumi is transparent. He is more skilled than before. His aura completely disappeared. Tatsumi's sense of existence disappeared. Dustless is in trouble. A group of members of the night raid gossiped and discussed. They were quite surprised by Tatsumi's progress. This kid had worked a lot recently, but his strength had improved. Sure enough, everyone didn't find me, and this guy didn't find me. Tatsumi was quite excited. He was close to Dustless, only a few steps away, and Dustless was still looking around, seemingly looking for Tatsumi's trace. It's time for revenge. With a shout in his heart, Tatsumi raised his fist and hit Dustless's face. The face that was more handsome than his own was too annoying in Tatsumi's eyes. Idiot. Wu-chen's face was blank and the corners of his mouth suddenly swept up a scheming arc, and he whispered, Armament hockey hardening. Bang bang bang. A dull explosion sounded out of thin air, and Tatsumi's whole body trembled fiercely. He hit Dustless's body with all his strength, but he was shaken. It hurts. Even with the protection of the armor, Tatsumi roared in pain. He felt that his right hand was about to be crippled. He looked at Dustless, who was motionless and unharmed. His dignity was shattered into pieces. He hit the target with all his strength. The enemy was fine, but his right arm was almost scrapped, and the pain was self-evident. Chapter 1648. Even so, the physical pain was far less than the mental torture. In order to surpass Dustless, Tatsumi worked hard every day and paid a lot of price, but now when he punched Dustless, the feeling was no different from punching a meteorite. Dustless was not hurt at all, not even a trace was left. It turned out that someone attacked me. It hurts. After a while, Dustless pretended to be surprised and screamed, giving Tatsumi face. If he looked like he was fine, then this kid would be too aggrieved. This acting is too bad. A group of night raid members couldn't stand it anymore. Someone punched you, and you only felt pain after more than 10 seconds. This is too fake. Acting should at least be at the level of a professional actor. You can feel pain? Could it be that my fist worked? Tatsumi was very excited when he saw it. Although Dustless just snorted twice, and his expression didn't look like he was in pain, Tatsumi was still excited. Human beings are emotional creatures. Once they are excited, they will inevitably be full of flaws. This is the case for Tatsumi at the moment. Tatsumi, be careful, your transparency is lifted. Susanoo quickly reminded loudly. Tatsumi, who seemed to be in a daze, was still immersed in joy and did not realize the coming of the crisis. Phew. At this moment, Tatsumi's vision suddenly darkened, and he also recovered from the surprise. It was okay if he didn't look, but when he looked closely, he suddenly panicked. What came to him was a big foot. Boom. With a muffled sound, Tatsumi was instantly knocked back more than 10 meters away. This kick was merciless, and the armor on Tatsumi's face was suddenly broken, revealing a young face. Even because of the excessive strength, his nose was slightly sunken and red and swollen. His nose was bleeding profusely. Bastard, why are you so ruthless? Tatsumi gritted his teeth in pain and shouted angrily. The boss said to stop. You did too much. I didn't leave any scars on you. Scratches are inevitable. There's no need to be so concerned about it. Dustless said casually, and he turned into a golden light and instantly appeared behind Tatsumi. He recalled the scene of Kakashi playing Uzumaki Naruto in Naruto in Naruto Naruto in Naruto Naruto in Naruto. Ninjutsu, Millennium Death. Dustless took out the wooden stick that he had prepared in advance and unceremoniously stabbed it into the depths of Tatsumi's soul. Ouch. Damned bastard. I'm going to curse you to hell. How could you think of such a sinister move? Tatsumi's screams resounded through the sky. Tatsumi's screams were creepy. The members of the night raid looked at the place where Tatsumi was attacked. How terrifying. Lubbock felt cold all over, and felt that it was necessary to keep a distance from Dustless. The most important thing was that he must not offend Dustless. Maybe what happened to Tatsumi would happen to him. Shameless. The female members of the night raid blushed, and Tatsumi, who was rolling on the ground in pain, could not bear to look at them. Enough. Glancing at the miserable Tatsumi, the boss Negenda gave a look of pity. Obviously, he knew that he was not the opponent, but he still provoked Dustless. It was completely self-inflicted. That's it for today. I have a task for everyone to complete. Calling the members of the night raid to her side, Negenda explained. Eliminate all the dangerous species released by Shira. You must kill them all. Due to the danger of this task, everyone is dispatched. Although his death has been dismissed, she is still very active recently, and she may encounter the minister's son Shira. Everyone must be careful. As for Tatsumi, staring at Tatsumi who was rolling on the ground and crying, the boss Negenda did not expect him to join them. In this state, she was afraid that he would only drag them down. At night, the sky was getting late, and the sky was full of beautiful stars. If the sound of bones being broken in the forest was ignored, the scenery was even more beautiful and harmonious. Ouch! The humanoid dangerous species with blood moved aimlessly in the forest. Many individuals had blood on their mouths. Several nearby villages were slaughtered by them, and all human beings were swallowed alive like food. Lady's death, the minister has relieved us of our duties. Why did he send us a task? The members of the Jaegers asked inexplicably. The person who spoke was Kurom. The old guy knows my temperament. He knows that it is useless to relieve me of my duties because I will do the night raid, so he gave me a task out of boredom. The old guy is too self-righteous. Other members of the Jaegers were slaughtering the dangerous species. Kurom followed Death herself to kill all the dangerous species. There was no need for so many people to participate. I heard that the minister's son, Shira, also took action this time. Kurom was full of doubts. There was news that pointed out that the minister's axe released the dangerous species in the Dr. S. Fashion Research Institute. This has nothing to do with us. My task is just to kill the guys of the night raid. Istetha's eyes were cold. She sneered at the little Shira. That kind of scum was not enough for her eyes. For Isteth, Shira was just a small character who could be defeated by raising her hand. She didn't even need to do it herself. Kurom and Will could almost kill Shira. At the same time, the people of the night raid also quickly arrived. The members of both sides rushed in the same direction, and were about to meet. It was that the situation was extremely strange this time. These dangerous species in human form were like ants smelling honey. They all gathered in one place strangely. Chapter 1649. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. On a flat mountaintop surrounded by cliffs, a large number of dangerous species gathered here. The members of the night raid were also scattered around to hunt these dangerous species that looked similar to humans. Seriously. Dustless's gaze slowly spread out, taking in the surrounding environment. About 100 meters away, there was a dark and terrifying cave, from which came the hysterical roars of beasts. It seems to be there. He opened the map and glanced at it casually, and then glanced at the dark depths of the cave. Although there were some differences, there was no doubt that this was the research base of Dr. Fashion. As for the source of the blueprint, it was obtained by the boss Najenda from the Revolutionary Army. Let's settle this quickly and go home. Wu Chen stretched his body, and the fatigue that went deep into the soul swept his whole body. Wu Chen yawned lazily. When he was about to enter the cave to eliminate the dangerous species around, there was a sudden change. Hum hum hum. The strange cry of a beast descended from the sky, echoing throughout the vast sky. Looking up at the sky, one could see that it was actually a ferocious-looking super-large bird. However, this was not the main point. Although flying dangerous species were somewhat rare, Wu Chen caught sight of other figures on the back of the dangerous species of birds. Long hair fluttered in the wind, and the water-blue elegant hair fluttered in the wind. Everything was visible at a glance. It can't be her, right? In his mind, a voluptuous and sexy figure suddenly flashed past. Her delicate facial features were exquisite like white jade, and she was like a peerless beauty that had walked out of a painting. Her exposed white skin caused one's imagination to run wild. Swish, swish. That figure suddenly fell and a tight-fitting leather suit came into view. Her figure was tightly bound, and her slender white legs were completely exposed. Sure enough, it's his death. No wonder her right eye is jumping around today. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Dustless sighed and retracted his sight. On second thought, the person who met his death here in the original work was Tatsumi, but now it was him. Dustless sighed with emotion. Some things were destined by the heavens. Boom boom boom. The black shadow landed on the ground, and the ground shook violently. A large amount of dust and smoke flew up. Even those dangerous species that had no consciousness were frightened by this huge tremor and fled in all directions. Today, I'll get rid of all of you dangerous species. I didn't expect you to be here. Seems like we're fated. Isdeath glanced around and suddenly found the thin Dustless. Her pupils suddenly flashed a raging light. That was the excitement of a wild beast meeting an evenly matched opponent. It was a crazy possessiveness. The scarlet demonic light in his eyes was an unprecedented excitement. The way this guy looks at me is not right. There were some goosebumps on his body. Thinking of his death's unique interest, Dustless felt cold. There's no grudge between us. You've been dismissed. Dustless was the first to speak. There is no distinction between tasks in the contest between the strong. A lot of light appeared in Isdeth's hand, and a huge ice blade was condensed in an instant. You are no match for me. Dustless shook his head and opened his mouth. When he was about to continue to speak, a very discordant voice came from the cave full of dangerous species. You two, if strong people like you fight, the capital may be affected, so please disappear from this world, okay? Wu Chun and Isdeth were stunned at the same time. They looked towards the direction of the arrogant voice. A young man with dark skin and a strong body came into view. There was a cross mark on his nose, which was very conspicuous. Shira. Dustless and Isdeth spoke at the same time, and the two frowned tacitly. The unexpected guest who suddenly appeared was the son of Minister Onesta. Shira. Something's wrong. How can this guy appear here? After a short loss, Dustless whispered secretly. Coincidence? There is no such coincidence in this world. This guy clearly ambushed in advance. Did this guy already know that I would appear here? Looking at the map in his hand, Dustless pondered for a moment and said bluntly, Nagenda's map should be made by you, right? Yes. Shira nodded proudly and stared at Isdeth like a villain. His tone was raised several times and he said proudly, including the drawings in the hands of General Isdeth, they were also provided by me. I intend to deceive all of you night raid and hunters here, and then let all of you disappear. However, the plan seems to have some changes. I didn't expect only you two in the end. Who gave you the courage to do this? Isdeth said with a murderous look, and her long hair was standing up. Who allowed me to do this? Isdeth, are you an idiot? The old guy naturally acquiesced in this kind of thing. Shira curled his lips with great disdain. You have been abandoned, Miss Isdeth. Dustless glanced at Isdeth, who had a cold face, and smiled gloatingly. He also understood Onesta's plan to use the map to attract all of the night raid, and wipe them out in one fell swoop. As for why even Isdeth had to be eliminated, this was even simpler. Without the threat of the night raid, Isdeth and her hunters had no value to exist. I am very curious. How do you wipe us out? Just based on those fancy moves of yours? Touching his chin, Dustless asked curiously, and you can't kill us both? Minister Onesta's end is even more miserable. Not only he offended the night raid, but he also trapped Isdeth. Minister, the old guy actually dares to plot against me. I will definitely let him taste the most ferocious torture in the world. Isdeth screamed with cold light in her eyes. She was like a dying beast, and her anger was rolling. Did I say that I want to kill you? I just want you to disappear from this world. Shira laughed sinisterly and did not hesitate to release the Taigu, Shangri-La, dimensional matrix. He knew that he was not the opponent of Isdeth and Dustless, so he just sent them to the edge of the universe. Chapter 1650. Buzzing. At this time, the ground shook slightly, and then the purple demon light shone. A Tai Chi pattern appeared quietly, and the surrounding space began to distort. This good-for-nothing is quite good. Looking around, Dustless stared at Sheila's Taigu with interest. Shangri-La, dimensional matrix. Although the ability was not good, it was also good. It was the best among the Taigu. Good for nothing. Grease heard the words and his face jumped a few times. He sneered and said, You two disappear together. Even if you die, someone will accompany you. Am I very kind? If you have any last words to thank me, say it quickly. When the voice fell, Sheila stared at Dustless and Isdeth, trying to catch a trace of fear from their faces. Are you an idiot? Have you graduated from kindergarten? This was what Dustless said. Is your head broken by the door? If so, I don't mind torturing you. Maybe I can restore your broken worldview again. This was Isdeth's sarcasm. You two have guts. Sheila almost vomited blood when she heard this. She wanted to slap herself a few times. Why did she have to waste her time talking to such a stubborn person? She was too stupid. Disappear. She stared at the two people fiercely. The purple light was dazzling to the extreme. Then there was a ripple in the void. Isdeth and Dustless both disappeared. In the strange space, it was dead silent. Looking up, it was dark all around. It was bottomless. It was quiet like stagnant water. There was no object. There were only two people in the whole world, Dustless and Isdeth. What is this place? Isdeth looked at the surrounding environment blankly. She suddenly felt that it was very difficult to breathe. This should be another dimension. A world without air. The kid transferred us here. I am afraid we can't go back. What would happen to people without oxygen? There was no doubt that they would die. Damn it. Isdeth's face was pale. She did not expect that she would fall into Sheila's hands. It was definitely a shame for her to be plotted by this kind of insect. Are we going to wait for death here? Isdeth smiled bitterly. Her body was different from ordinary people. Even if she did not absorb oxygen, she could live for a while, but she could not live forever, or she would die sooner or later. Isdeth was unwilling to die together with Minister Onesta. You want to die here? I'm sorry. Although I've lived for hundreds of years, I haven't lived enough. If you want to die, you can continue to stay here and wait for death. Sorry, I have something to do, so I'll leave first. The sudden words made Isdeth stunned. She opened her crystal eyes and looked carefully. Dustless's eyes seemed to have changed dramatically. Is that Dustless's original appearance? Staring at the indifferent eyes, Isdeth was a little dumbfounded for a while. In that unique ocean, she was like a lonely boat that could tilt at any time. Isdeth couldn't tell the specific feeling clearly. In short, it was very small. God's power. As Dustless's voice fell, there was a ripple in the dark void. A small hole gradually enlarged, connecting to the unknown mysterious world. From the section of the black hole, Isdeth felt familiar. How did you do it? Do you also have the same taigu as Sheila? Isdeth's eyes were shining. It was the first time for her to admire someone's life. People live in the world, no matter who your enemy is. No matter strong or weak, you have to keep a last card for yourself. In the previous world, there is the mark of my former flying thunder god Warlock, which can be used as a space coordinate. That guy wants to throw me in the universe, so that I can't go back. It's so funny. What is the flying thunder god Warlock? Although Isdeth did not understand what he meant, she also understood that Dustless left a card in advance. She could not help but admire his far-sighted IQ secretly. Thinking of Dustless's previous words, she could not help but gently nodded. What he said was right. When a person lives in the world, no matter when, you have to prepare a way for yourself to be safe under any crisis. Let's go. Glancing at Isdeth faintly, Dustless took the lead to step into the black hole. Stepping into the hole that was torn by God's power. It was still a dark world. Isdeth followed Dustless. A path completely composed of special energy spread to the front. Can we really go back? About a few minutes later, the dark exhalation was endless and Isdeth whispered. If you don't believe me, you can go back, I promise not to stop you. Dustless suddenly stopped and pointed to the large dark space behind him. Isdeth glared and looked up at Dustless's indifferent eyes. She was angry. When did someone dare to talk to her like that? Isdeth, although I don't know what you plan, but you should deliberately let Sheila launch Shangri-La. Dimensional Matrix, right? Looking at Isdeth with no expression, Dustless then opened her true face, pointed to her eyes and said calmly, Don't think that I don't know anything. You can't hide anything from these eyes. Your Taigu, demon god's manifestation. Essence of the demon, is a terrifying Taigu. The hidden ability, Mokbatmo, can even freeze time and space. If you use this trick, you should be able to kill Sheila instantly, but you deliberately let her go. I need a reasonable explanation. Chapter 1651. Isdeth couldn't help but be stunned. Hearing this decisive and affirmative tone, Isdeth had an illusion that Dustless was more familiar with the demon god's appearance, devil's essence, than herself. Don't hide it, your move, Mokbaltimo, is enough to freeze time and space, but it consumes a lot of energy. Even you can only use it once a day. Dustless said, his eyes were full of wisdom. Predicting the future was one of the many skills of a traveler. I can use it once a day. I didn't expect you to know this kind of thing. Death couldn't help but smile bitterly, feeling that all her secrets were exposed. She didn't expect Dustless to know this kind of thing. Death's face showed a teasing smile. You know so clearly. Have you ever sneaked into my residence and secretly stole from me? TSA. It's really easy to be careless. Living in my own home makes me feel uneasy and insecure. Dustless frowned when he heard that. He always felt that Death's words had other meanings, but he still said, as long as I want to know, you can't hide from my eyes no matter what underwear you wear. Death did not deny it. She always felt that this was a fact, because her secret tricks were far more secretive than underwear. Give me a reasonable explanation. Dustless was too lazy to continue to talk nonsense with Death, and said directly, otherwise I can throw you out, and you can die alone in this other dimension. In your situation at that time, you can freeze time and space to kill Sheila, but you didn't do so. With all due respect, this is too suspicious. The reason? After a while, Death no longer concealed it. Her eyes were burning. She bit her thin lips and said, a hungry beast, it has been hungry for a long time, and suddenly encountered a very rich meal. But the strength of this meal is too strong. What would you do if it were you? What a strange metaphor. Wu Chen frowned slightly when he heard that. Then he said softly, if it were me, I would deliberately approach it and wait for a suitable opportunity to launch a sneak attack, and take it down in one fell swoop. Wait, don't tell me the big meal you mentioned is me? Seeing Death's hot eyes, Dustless asked angrily. If the big meal in your mouth is me, then I have to take back what I said just now, and I must give you a new answer. Tell me about it. Death asked expectantly. If it's me, then you will be in big trouble, Mrs. Death. His eyes gradually became cold. Dustless turned into black and rushed out, and the deadly wind rushed to Death. So fast. Death's pupils shrank suddenly. Although she was surprised by Dustless's sudden attack, she reacted immediately and made a fierce counterattack. Caw. Death stomped her feet slightly, and then with herself as the center, a huge ice wall rose from the ground, wrapping Death in layers. It was airtight to the outside world, defending against the impact of Dustless. Fragile. Dustless looked contemptuous when he saw this. His eyes immediately turned, and the ice layer disintegrated in an instant. In just a few seconds, it suddenly evaporated and disappeared. Amaterasu. The black fire baked the ice layer around Death, and it peeled off at a speed visible to the naked eye. Death was also exposed to Dustless's attack. Still so strong. Death sighed slightly when she saw this, and her beautiful pupils immediately dimmed. But this was only a moment. Death was not the kind of person who would surrender. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a light wave of her hand, countless icicles shot out in a formation that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Fire release. His cheeks puffed up slightly, staring at the flying ice, and a big flame was blown out from Dustless's mouth. Fire release or grand fire annihilation. The density and scope of the sea of fire flew out in an instant, and the icicles were melted into water drops before they got close to the sea of fire. A woman who doesn't know when to stop actually wants to torture me. It's a fool's dream. Dustless sneered coldly. The reason why Death was willing to be transmitted to other spaces with him was to find a suitable opportunity to approach him, and then give a fatal blow. This crazy woman really belongs to the type of brain disease. Dustless was disgusted. He knew Death's strange character, and it was necessary to be caught and tortured. And torturing a person who was stronger than herself was more successful than taming those scum. Death, you seem to think that I'm too easy to bully. With a cold smile on his face, Dustless suddenly laughed. This guy. Death saw this and had a bad feeling. She felt uncomfortable being stared at by Dustless's playful eyes. When she tortured others, she usually used that kind of eyes. Since you took the initiative to come to me, then I can only give you a taste of your own medicine. You like to train others so much. Why don't you be generous this time and be trained by me? When these words fell, Dustless's body instantly disappeared without a trace. Where did he go? Death was shocked and quickly looked around, searching for Dustless's trace. Just at this time, a big cold hand suddenly grabbed her shoulder. And what worried Death even more was that her limbs lost most of their strength in an instant, and she had no extra strength to resist Dustless's powerful strength. I'm not a gentleman. You can call me a rude butcher. When I meet someone who doesn't obey, I only have one way to deal with it. With my fist. That you're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.